Representative Spiller back here. He has a couple words he wanted to say right at the beginning, so I'm just going to hand it over to him to start.
Thank you, Eric. I just wanted to welcome everybody. Is everybody here from Shackford County, or we got, all right. So,
No.
No.
Multi-county.
They're
all right.
Taylor, Stevens.
Well, listen, for those that aren't from Shackford County, welcome to Shackford County. You've been part of House District 68. I appreciate y'all being here. I'm here the same as you, to listen, to learn, possibly provide some input, and I've been trying to monitor this, and this line and another line that cuts through House District 68 south of here. For some time, I've sent letters to the PUC. I've communicated with Jaron, who I've known for years, and so I just want to say I appreciate y'all being here, appreciate the turnout, and hopefully we'll all gather more information and move forward from here. This is not anything anybody wants. I get that. I understand that. But we're here nonetheless, and so we're going to try to do everything we can, and I'll continue to do everything I can to provide oversight and monitoring. So thank y'all for being here. Thank you.
All right, y'all, several of you, as you came in today, have submitted cards. If you have other questions as we go forward, please just write them out, hand them up. We're going to try and go through these basically in the order they were received tonight. You guys, as you probably are already aware from walking in, there are 2 separate meetings. There's actually 3 separate rooms we have working tonight. There will be this room where you can submit questions and we'll respond directly back to those questions. The room next down the line, so to speak, is a map room. There are 3 sets of maps that show the entire project. The project is in the neighborhood of 235 to 268 miles long. So there are many, many maps. There will be folks in there who can help you find your exact property on those maps. That's the second room down from this one. And then in the third room at the end of the corridor, so to speak, there is a room we set up with different subject matter experts on different topics. So if there are specific topics where you want to talk to one of the engineers on structures, construction, or any of those type of things, we have folks down there meeting booths in that far end for you. The night is really for you all, so you are welcome to come and go from room to room as you so choose. Our goal is to try and provide information. All right, I'm going to start into these questions.
Can we get your name first?
Yeah, my name is Jaron Taylor. Sorry if I skipped that at the beginning. I've been working with Oncor now for a better part of 20 years doing these type of cases all across the state. First question, which is a good one, which is generally, why are we here? Why is this transmission line needed in the state? This is not a short answer, so let me just preface it from that way. It starts with a bill that was called HB 5066 that was passed, David may have to help me here, but at least 2 sessions ago. That bill was based on a study for the Permian Basin. This project is part of what is called the Permian Basin Reliability Plan. It is a project to ensure that we have sufficient capacity to be able to import and serve the load of the Permian and the Delaware Basin. At the highest level, that is the need for the project and projects. There are over 40 different projects. This is one of those. This is a 765 kV project, and there are 5 different 765 kV projects moving forward in the state currently. And there are about 8 or 9 more after that are on the eastern side of the state. Why are the projects being built? What is their purpose? Step 1 is to serve load. Load is electrical demand. That is the lights we have in this room, large industrial loads, oil and gas loads of all different types. That is fundamentally the need. In order to serve those industries, we have to have power. Secondary question that's not on the card that I'm going to go ahead and address real quick is, how does this benefit everywhere between, the east side of Texas and West Texas? That's a more complicated answer, but as you take high voltage power and you connect it into your existing transmission system, you create a more reliable grid. We have the ability at that point to flow large bulk power from where it is produced to where it is needed. And every one of the stations on its path from east to west in the state. It provides an injection standpoint. I can try.
Yeah.
That's better?
Yeah.
All right, when y'all can't hear me, someone just give me an ear and I will try. Normally isn't a problem. So that reliability benefit that comes to all of the local communities come at the stations. If you notice, the endpoint for these facilities were picked by ERCOT after an extensive study of the existing power infrastructure in the state. So I'll use Dinosaur as an example of that. Dinosaur is the eastern end of this project. It sits right by the Comanche Peak nuclear facility. Next to Comanche Peak are multiple existing transmission line corridors. Several what are called 345 kV corridors, several 138 kV corridors. So as Dinosaur, the endpoint for this project, is built adjacent, all of that existing electrical infrastructure will be tied into Dinosaur, allowing power that flows on and off of this transmission line to be directly infused to all of those other lines that serve our homes and communities today. I'm going to go on to the next question. Next question, when will the decision be made as to which route will be taken? This case, Dinosaur to Longshore, was filed on February 19th. The Public Utility Commission of Texas is the entity that makes the decision. That will Jeremy Schwartz start filing. I'm going to drop him off. He's got another good. Public Utility Commission of Texas makes the decision. As you will see on our maps when you go forward in those rooms, we have a lot of routes that we have delineated and identified for the Public Utility Commission of Texas. I think we have filed, I forget the number, let me look at my cheat sheet.
So you filed it 19th of this year?
February 19th of this year, correct. So what that means is your final decision in this case will be made approximately 6 months later. So 2 + 6, 8. That tells you 8/19 is approximately the day the PUC will have a final decision. I say approximately because the Public Utility Commission of Texas meets in what are called open meetings. And those are set and noticed at specific times. So it will be at an open meeting of the Public Utility Commission of Texas right around that 8/19 time frame. Next question. Why can't Oncor upgrade existing 345 kV lines to handle the 765 kV lines? Good question. This was studied in depth at ERCOT. And in fact, many of the existing 345 kV lines today are being upgraded. They are not being upgraded to 765 kV, and there's a reason for that. I'll get to that in just a minute. What they are doing is they are being upgraded in capacity. They are going from a 3,200 amp line to a 5,000 amp line to where we can basically double the capacity of several of those. So most of the east-west corridors that are 345 through this part of the state are today being upgraded in capacity, but not voltage. They're not upgraded in voltage for a couple of reasons. One, the stations can't accommodate the higher voltage. That's why where these 765 kV lines are being built, you are having 765 kV stations put in place. Two, the existing towers that are 345 kV towers cannot support the weight of the 765 kV conductor. So you are essentially having to tear down and rebuild if you were to go that route. The third, and in my opinion, what was the most predominant reason that didn't happen is because the state cannot afford to be without its 345 kV system to allow it to be upgraded. In order to upgrade from 345 to 765, you would have to take those 345 kVs out of service, take them down, and build the new transmission line in the case. And our grid today is too constrained to allow that to happen. We have to have those 345 kV lines in service.
So who conducted those studies that said that we don't have enough capacity right now?
ERCOT, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas.
And are those studies public record or?
Yes, ma'am. They're all filed with the application, actually. So if you look into the filings that are on the Public Utility Commission of Texas, all of those studies were filed as part of the docket. You can also look at the testimony of Jared Gurley. That's one of the Oncor witnesses, and they are attached to his testimony. That may make it easier to find them on the interchange. Next question, and this is probably what I'm going to refer you to the maps on. Why were the sections 54, 55, T1, T2 added to the route proposal after the public meetings held in June of 2025? Good question. This is referring to the fact that additional counties to the north of the original study area were added after the public meetings. Short answer to that question is we received comments at those public meetings from several elected officials and various data points that we needed more corridors and we needed further north routing corridors. That is the point of our public process, is to solicit information from the public and try and adapt to that. Several folks have reached out and asked that we take more time in the routing process to provide more options to the commission. Representative Stiller was one of those. That was the letter that he mentioned at the beginning, asking us to take more time in this process and provide more options to the commission. Some of these routes to the far north are those additional options. There are also additional routes to the south and through the middle of the study area that were not there at the time of the public meeting.
So does that have anything to do with the pushback you got in the southern counties to come up here on the north side?
No, it's just part of the process. This happens in every case. We're providing additional routes and moving them forward.
But then why in June?
Next, hey, I'm sorry, I'm gonna try and stick to these
Well,
questions.
I know,
These
but
folks,
this pertains to that. In June of 2025, when you started getting new lines, why didn't you hold this public hearing? I mean, why are we doing this now, nearly a year later, when you've already laid these lines through all this?
I'm sorry, ma'am, I apologize. I didn't catch it all. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, why didn't we have a public hearing back in June of 2025? I mean, when you were holding the other public hearings?
No. Sorry, I understand. Her question was, why was there not an additional public meeting at that time of the other public meetings in this area? The short answer to that is that those were not in the study area at that time. That study area was expanded. The public hearing for this case will be held in Austin in the upcoming months. So there hasn't been a public hearing. I don't know what's going on back there. That will be happening in coming months. The prior meetings were informational meetings, very similar to tonight,
So why the meeting today,
Yeah.
to try and provide information.
after the deadline is passed?
To try and provide information.
After the deadline.
Yeah.
So
Is that
the
a
dead-
yes?
Transplant's up there.
I don't know exactly which deadline you're referring to, sir. So,
We're having the meeting after the fact.
The deadline to intervene.
After the
the
application.
deadline.
After
Like
the
your-
deadline.
what's the
You knew
point?
that,
yes, the intervention deadline is passed.
correct?
That's
Why are we
correct.
having a meeting today?
I don't know that I have a great answer to you on that. We were asked to come in. These type of meetings after the case has been filed are exceptionally rare. We were asked by several members to have this meeting to provide this information, and so we have done so. And we have done it as quickly as we could after that request came in.
Yeah, do you
Jim-
know how hard it is to get a lawyer after this late, when we got notified so late? You can't find a lawyer in the state that
Well, thank you, guys.
specializes.
Without a conflict.
And the way you got this thing planned, it's 500 foot from my house.
400 from ours.
Well, you own it, I tell you what, we'll just let him move in there.
Yeah.
Can I piggyback a question on the deadline? So when did, you said last summer you were encouraged to expand the possible routes? Do you know when that was, that this route was decided? And, I'm just wondering, once you knew when it was gonna be, why didn't we get a meeting between then and, February or whatever?
It takes us, if you look at kind of the arc of us preparing a case like this and an application to come forward, it takes us 4 to 6 months generally, sometimes a little faster, sometimes a little slower, to work those routes, identify them, study them, do what we can from field reconnaissance, and then have them in a position that we can present them. And so, excuse me.
Yeah.
How that works is that was what we were doing in that time. We received that feedback that there was a strong sentiment that there should be additional routes in this case. Yes, some of those are to the north, like I mentioned earlier, some of those are to the south and through the middle as well. We take that time to study those, to bring those forward as options.
So that took from summer to February to decide this route?
Yes, ma'am. And then we
We got
have
30
about
days.
we have about 2 months of putting that information together so that we can meet the requirements. I apologize, y'all. I realize I'm holding this far away. to meet the Public Utility Commission of Texas's filing requirements. So we have to first identify the routes. We then have to do field reconnaissance on those routes. We have to study those routes. Then we have to do what I call data tabulation, which is all of the little things that you see presented in the application that are the objective kind of verifiable factors about the routes, what soils are impacted, what streams are impacted, where is it parallel roads, where are there habitable structures, where are there cemeteries, how does it impact airports. All of that work has to be done once we have the routes identified to meet the requirements of the Public Utility Commission of Texas so that we can file.
Can you give us a list of the public officials that came to you and said we need additional routes so that we can have a visit with them?
They're all in the application, sir. But there's a list of every single person.
No,
who
the ones that
received-
came in after the June meeting that decided that we need additional routes. Who were those public officials?
I don't know off the top of my head, sir, but that's all in the.
Can we get a list of them?
I don't know that I have a list of those who made that exact
I mean,
request.
they made this thing the way it is today. They wanted it for a reason. I'd like to ask them personally why the reason.
Understood. All I'm trying to say is there's a list of all of those meetings that occurred and when they occurred in the application. Which meeting had what feedback in it, I apologize, I just don't know that standing here in front of me.
Well, clearly it was after the June meetings, the public meetings you had.
It was at those meetings and after those. Yes, I would agree with you.
Where is it located in the application? What page number?
It would be in our notice affidavit,
Right.
and then there's also in the environmental assessment, there's a table that walks through the public feedback received, and it would have in there a list of all of the various meetings that were held at that
And you
time.
do understand that when you try to contact someone, there's a nice little thing on here that says you can contact Miss Christine Williams. Miss Christine Williams does not answer her phone, nor does she return phone calls. I've tried many times. You also cannot go online and find anything that you're looking for. It is very complicated.
Can you give us the docket number on that listing to tell us exactly where to find these? Because there's over 3,000 entries in there right now.
It would be as, no, sitting here right now, standing right here right now,
I
I
get it,
cannot.
I mean,
But
it's already passed now, just give us a list of these officials.
it would be in the application
Like,
file.
there's over 3,000 listings in there.
I understand, sir. Give me just a second, trying to answer your question. It would be in the application filing, which would be filed by Oncor Electric, and they are going to be it will be a large tranche of filings, and there are many of them in succession, and it would be in that piece. I understand that there are a lot of filings in the docket right now, which makes it very hard. You can search for filings that were by Oncor directly, that will significantly pull that list, and then in there, you are looking for the application. All right, next question. What can be expected in the property values with 180-foot towers and 765 kV lines running through the property, and how will the construction on the line actually occur? All right, generally construction on the project, it will happen over a course of 2 to 3 years. That 2 to 3 year construction time frame, you will have different phases of the work done at different times. And if you've ever built a fence on your property, something like that, it works very much the same way. You're going to have crews come through that are going to come through and clear the vegetation within that 200-foot right-of-way. You will then probably have a period of time go by before you will have another crew out. The next crew that comes out will install gates. They will install gates in existing fences so that the crews can linearly travel up and down the right-of-way. You will next have a crew that will come in and they will do foundations. So they will drill a hole for the foundation, they will pour the concrete in the foundation, it creates the footings of those structures. You will then have a large period of time that will elapse. Then you will have the next crew come through, which will erect the structures in place. And then the last crew that will come through will pull the wire. Those wires are pretty much one contiguous piece, and they are pulled from dead-end structure to dead-end structure. So that is generally the process that the construction goes through, piece by piece, phase of work by phase of work.
Property values.
Incorrect. Eastland County, Oncor just did an upgrade. There was probably 5 different contractors, okay? They come in and trim the trees. 2 notified, or 1 notified by phone. One of them left a note, and on Oncor side, it says 2 weeks notice. One of them left a note one Saturday morning, and they saw me at the gate. I go up to meet them, and I said, when'd you leave the note? We just stuck it there. 7 trucks at the gate. Okay, this is an electronic gate. I said, what were you fixing to do with the 7 trucks? I didn't drive up there. We're fixing to cut the gate and come in. We have an easement. Quit telling your contractors, I told them, quit telling me, you got an easement. You don't have an easement. Oncor has an easement. And this road is not in your easement. The highline wire is not on the road. So then the contractor gets his supervisor because only one of them could speak English out of the 7. Okay, the other landowner across the road, he threatened to call ICE. He was so mad. He like had a heart attack. Right? So they want to take more trees than what they took 5 or 6 years ago. I said, the easement hasn't changed. And I showed him the stumps on the ground. So you say, you making your contractor singular? No,
Let me ask you this too.
So,
when are you
we're
gonna
not
get the
seeing-
grazing back in order? I mean, you're running through this land, you're tearing it all to pieces and getting my grass, all that stuff. What account do we?
So it's a good question. In the PUC's final order, there will be a requirement in there that after the project, that the company restores the land to its
Yeah, but that's
existing.
3 years.
That is correct. To its
What I do to
existing
meet that?
contours and grades. So first of all, that 200-foot easement should be the only place that you have impact on the property.
What,
Step
200
one.
foot? Well, then you're going all the way across all this property, 200 foot wide, and you're going across 700-800 acres? Do the math on that, how many acres you taking out?
Your math is beyond me, but it's several, yes.
I mean, it's pretty, but what I do is sell a bunch of cows, cause I ain't got no grass.
There will be no, so, I'm not the one to advise you on how to deal with your cows. Let's be
Well,
clear.
I'm
So,
saying-
that's,
I'm
let's be
saying,
clear.
I'm
call.
saying, shield that, don't put it-
Point being, there's no prohibition on you continuing to use that land.
I know,
For
but they done
grazing.
for me.
There's nothing there.
There's nothing there.
Ain't no
Okay,
road.
I understand this guy right here is 2 to 3 years, you can't use that land. I couldn't keep my gates locked, and I visited with the contractors daily, and then I come out there one day, they cut my chain to drive out in what they call the weeds, which is my weed pasture.
Right?
Okay, and they were right there by the house, and I visited with the contractors daily. I know they're your contractors, but they work for you, okay? You probably could give more if your contractors abide by your rules. And we've already seen it, we got 2 lines on one piece of property, one on the north and one on the south, one on the east and west. Now you want to let another one dissect the property.
Go ahead, sir.
Your 200-foot wide easement, does that include construction easement or will construction easement be?
I'm gonna repeat that question just so everyone can hear it. His question is, the 200-foot wide easement that is part of the project, will there be an additional construction easement for additional space beyond that 200 feet? The answer to that question is a little bit yes, a little bit no. So let me explain. When it is going straight, the answer to that question is no. There is nothing acquired outside of that 200 feet. So that 200 feet encompasses both what is needed permanently and what is needed for the construction. The exception to that rule is where the transmission line turns a corner. So when you see the transmission line have an angle structure, there will be need for a 2-year construction easement on the outside of those angles. That is really the only place where we need additional right-of-way beyond the 200 feet. So where you see an angle, you should expect that that will be required. Yes, ma'am.
Will Oncor pay damages to people like this fellow that raises cattle?
Yes, ma'am, that's a common part of the process.
Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
200-foot easement either side or 200 feet?
Another good question. His question was 200-foot easement either side of the center line or in total. The answer is it is 200 feet in total. So your center line, 100 feet to the north, 100 feet to the south, is essentially what should be expected, because this line is primarily running east and west. So 200
When
feet
this 200
total.
foot easement goes right through the middle of my stock tank and the drainage system that we've worked on for 25 years to keep from flooding the homes downriver from us, who's gonna fix that? Who's gonna pay for those homes downriver?
Well,
Because that 200 foot goes right through the middle of my stock tank that waters my livestock. Now you're telling him he ain't got 2-3 years with no grazing. I got 2-3 years with no water. Are they gonna pay my water bill when I have to get it from the co-op?
So ideally, that water tank and stock pond aren't impacted because they are spanned, ideally. If that turns out that can, and let me break that down a little bit. When you're talking about building a transmission line, your structures are going to be put in the ground about every 14 to 1,500 feet. So that between each transmission line structure, you should have somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,400 feet between each structure. That is the detailed engineering that will happen after the PUC approves a route. Right now, when you look at the routing maps in the next rooms, you just see dotted lines coming across. At the end of the case, when the Public Utility Commission has determined where the project will be built, the next thing that will happen is the Oncor engineers will do the detailed engineering. That is when they take into account things like stock ponds, water wells.
I'm gonna tell you right now, they can't get 200 foot off my back fence line without tearing everything out. Because if I've gotta give a 200 foot easement, they got half my tank, they got the overflow valve on my tanks, they got the creeks that feed the tanks down from me, and they're gonna tear it all out and level it, take all the trees out of it, right? That's what they're gonna do, they take all the vegetation out, so they can build gates on the fence lines. And they're gonna have everything torn out where the water now will just flood everybody downstream from me.
Vegetation within the 200 feet will be removed.
That's what I'm telling you, and it's contoured.
There are a lot of protections put in place on erosion and things like that that are part of the process to avoid those items that you're referring to.
Do you put that in writing?
And so,
Let's have it in writing. So you're saying that, oh no, we'll take care of this, all right? Put it in writing. Are we gonna get a guarantee that it's not gonna affect us living right beside it? Our cattle aren't gonna be affected? Are you gonna put it in writing?
maybe it's already in there. There's
A
testimony.
guarantee, a guarantee.
Ma'am?
I don't know if this deal going over my major stock tank, and I have electric water down here, they go down here, whatever.
You know, you said it's put it right.
Let me finish up. There are provisions that are required on erosion that are already in testimony and in the application as to how those issues will be dealt with. In addition to that, at the end of every case, there will be ordering paragraphs in the final order that address erosion, that address the contours and grades of the ground and things like that that are part of every transmission project that comes forward.
You're saying that's 2 to 3 years down the road. That ain't when they're building it, that's 2-3 years down the road. Well, what happens when my neighbor's houses flood for the next 2 to 3 years? What are we gonna do then?
How do we want
Say,
to
sorry, your luck, they just decided to put
Sorry,
it.
so you're being a little patient, go ahead.
You said it was gonna be put in writing. Some of the papers you've already said was in that 5 pound paper you bring. But part of it says Encore's not gonna be responsible for any livestock damage or HB unless culture's closed.
Perfect.
So one of you guys is lying. You're telling us something here, your papers say something totally different.
What I was referring to, just to be clear to her question, was the stormwater prevention programs that are put in place and that are part of your.
Well,
I'm talking about my house. I'm talking about cell phone service. I'm talking about how is it gonna affect how I live? Is that gonna be in writing?
I don't know exactly I don't know your situation, ma'am.
well, it's 500 foot from our house.
And it's 400.
And our barns, and our working pens, I mean, it's, and going across the tank.
Yeah, there you go.
So I am not a doctor. Let's just be real clear on that. So what I would refer you all to on that is a question we get a fair amount, is what's called electromagnetic fields in the EMF. And in the case, there will be testimony filed by a medical doctor that is his specialty in the United States. Like I said, I'm not the one to debate that topic with you. He will put forward his testimony on that piece. It's already out there if you want to go see it in several of these other dockets. His name is Dr. Edward Gelman, if you want to look him up. I will leave those issues to him to address, as I'm probably not going to know.
Is he on your payroll?
What about all the case studies that have already been filed on the 365 kV lines causing cancer, leukemia, and everything else? He's
No.
gonna tell you what you wanna hear, just like Fowler.
Go ahead, sir.
Just curious, I don't know if you live next to one, but would you let your family, your kids live next to one?
A transmission line?
Yeah.
I tried to buy a house on that next to it.
Within 300 feet, would you let your wife and kids live next to it?
I would. I tried to buy a house.
Then I got a house for you.
I've got a house for you.
I'm gonna move on to the next question here.
Mine has a pole.
When will the PUC determine what interveners will give direct testimony at the hearing, and how is that determination made? So, just to be clear on this, the PUC doesn't make that determination. Anyone who is an intervener in the case has an ability to provide testimony that will be considered in the case. So there's a little bit of a misnomer in the question on that piece. So if you want to intervene in the case and you want to file testimony, that testimony goes in as evidence at the case at the hearing on the merits. The actual hearing on the merits, which will occur in Austin, is the time when that will occur. PUC doesn't limit who can and cannot provide testimony from the intervener. Any intervener in the case has the right to put on testimony.
Isn't that in like 2 weeks?
All right, I apologize. I was asked to repeat those questions. The question was, when will the PUC make the decision on who can provide testimony as evidence in the hearing? The answer to that question is, the PUC does not make that determination. Any intervener in the case has the right to put forward testimony at that hearing.
Does it have to be written?
Yes, sir. The testimony has to be written. Good question. So the question was, does testimony have to be written for their consideration? The answer is yes. All testimony submitted before the Public Utility Commission of Texas has to be written and provided at that hearing. Go ahead, sir. I can see with your hand up.
You have the hardest job in Texas with that. Congratulations. The gentleman up there asked a question a minute ago, and I couldn't make it out, but I think he said something about conflicting statements of liability, where one part of the document said that Oncor wouldn't be responsible, and another part said that they would be held liable. I'm not sure I heard that right. I didn't really hear a clear answer.
Yeah, so his question was what Oncor is and is not going to be responsible for. All of those issues are determined in that final order that comes out at the commission. So that's kind of the answer for it. There are specific ordering paragraphs as to what Oncor has to do as they remediate and put the land back together at the end. And those are all laid out in that final order at the commission. Other items, which I'm sure there are questions on in this staff when if I ever get to them, are things like property damages, damage to livestock, damage to drainage systems. All of those other items are also taken care of, but that is in a separate process at the condemnation timeframe. So when Oncor is either buying an easement from you or going through that condemnation process, if you guys can't agree on a price, those issues are addressed there. But I do want to be clear, that is a separate part than the Public Utility Commission of Texas project. This part is just about determining should the project be built, and if so, where it should be built. All of those financial considerations of what should be paid for the property, what the liability should be, is the property damaged by the transmission line, all of those issues are dealt with in local courts or through negotiations hereafter. So I just want to be real clear. That's also the case at the hearing on the merits that will occur. It is limited in scope to the determination of need for the transmission line and where it should be built. Those other issues are left to later piece. Okay. This is a question we've kind of already addressed already. Has Oncor done any studies on health and environmental safety of living within a couple hundred feet of the route? That's the testimony of Dr. Edward Gelman that will be put forward. Have there been specific studies done on it? There are 2 that have been done by power engineers on the various levels of EMF that will be experienced in and around the transmission lines. Go ahead, sir.
I want to go back to your last statement there that it sounds like
you're saying, we don't have anything to say today about the financial part of it, but you can't separate what's going on. That it is a financial deal for us. So for us to come in here and say, yeah, it might come down this way, we already knew that. We want some answers about what's gonna happen to our livelihood, what's gonna happen to our inheritances, to our children, what's gonna happen to our income. And you're saying that those things will be taken care of way down the line. That's too late for
After
us.
August 18th, they have 180 days.
Do what?
After August 18th, they've got like 180 days.
She was referring to these things, so let me answer your question. So, I don't disagree with you, but that's an unsatisfactory. Just want to be a little clear about that. Those are the rules of the process. And the reason for that is, you have to figure out where the transmission line is going to be built before you start, and who, right, what she just said, and who it's going to affect before you can start trying to figure out how that impact is going to be and what the right compensation is. That's the reason it's split into two, that's pursuant to the rules of the Public Utility Commission of Texas as to what is in the scope and what is out of the scope of this proceeding. But I understand that leaves certain questions unanswered.
It just sounds like, we're not gonna have a whole lot of say in this until it's too late, and then we gotta lawyer up and spend money that we don't have to be able to hide it, and it's gonna be too late, and if we don't like it, we'll just put it in our property and go on to it, pretty much it. I mean, I'm not a big rancher, and I'm not a big farmer. I've got some cattle. I'm retired. I make my living on hunting, the back end of my property, dove hunts, deer hunts, hog hunts, turkey hunts. It's gonna destroy that for me. Plus, the other end of my property that, where we live, it's gonna be valued so much that, I mean, there's something that's called damage to the remainder. And we need to know about all this stuff before there's a decision that's made.
I understand the desire, sir. I don't have a good answer to you because that is the process that the state has utilized, but I do understand the lack of satisfaction.
Why are they in such a big hurry?
So, the project as a whole, so her question was, why is the state, I guess you would say, in such a hurry? Why is there the need for the transmission line? That goes back to a little bit about what we talked about at the beginning, that the load growth is demanding additional electricity to the west. There's a secondary factor to that, which is we have on the grid today what is called a GTC, a transmission constraint that exists between the central areas of Texas and West Texas. That limits how much power can be moved from east to west and west to east. Creates a very real problem, and frankly, that is due to underbuilding of the transmission system over the last 10 years. And so because the system has been underbuilt due to the need for additional power, a large comprehensive plan was put in place to rectify that situation and build the projects necessary to feed West Texas.
And this has nothing to do with the AI center that they're putting in.
Good question. That's an unpopular answer, but it is a simple fact of the matter that these projects are justified based on the Permian and the Delaware Basin load growth, not the recent raise that there was for.
That's a good question. All right, so let me back up for a second. Several questions about why are we not building a power plant out there? Well, there's a couple answers to that. One, we're prohibited by state law from building power plants. So in Texas, your power plants are completely competitive. The state of Texas does not have the authority to order a power plant to be built by those entities. So power in the state of Texas is broken into 3 phases. It is retail electric providers, that's who you buy your power from at your house. Most of you, I assume, have the ability to choose who you buy that power from. If you don't, it's because you live in a co-op service territory. That's phase 1, that is a competitive process. Phase 2 of that process is where Oncor Electric and the other what are called transmission service providers sit. They are fully regulated by the state of Texas. They build what they're told to build from the state of Texas. They build it when and they build it where they're told to build it. The third phase of power in the state of Texas is generation. Generation is completely competitive. Those entities are not regulated by the state of Texas. They can build generation where they choose to build it. They can operate it where they choose to operate it, and they can sell that power at the price they choose to sell that power for. It is a competitive entity. And because of that three-phase setup in the state of Texas, what the state has the ability to order is a transmission solution to allow power to flow from east to west or west to east, but it does not have the ability to order a transmission company to build generation. We would love, frankly, to see additional generation built in West Texas, and much of that is consumed, is planned, and moving forward.
How much is our electric bill gonna go up? About triple to pay for this process?
It depends entirely on, that is a very complex question. So, yes, it is a true statement that transmission costs in the state of Texas are by law provided under the postage stamp rate. And basically what that means is our electric bills, whether you're in East Texas, South Texas, or West Texas, we all pay for the transmission system in our electric bills. Large loads like the Permian Delaware Basin, data centers were mentioned a minute ago, those large loads pay a substantial portion of that. So if you really think about it, the more load you bring on the system, the more payors you have of electric rates. But it is the electric consumers in the state who pay for the transmission system that gets built. Go ahead, sir.
That brings up another question to me that I would like to know, and it has to be an answer, because you said there's been all these studies done that they, I mean, obviously there's an answer to this. How long will it take to pay off this $2 billion that they're spending on this? Because I have a friend that buys right-of-ways for oil companies. They just finished one that was 300 miles, cost billions of dollars. It took them 30 days to recoup their money out of it. And I want to know how long is it, I mean,
that's
obviously you guys are going to make mega money out of this.
So, I mean, let's address that first of all. So, how long, he had several questions in there. I'm going to try and hit them. You keep me honest if I miss one. So, one was, how long does it take for the transmission lines essentially to be paid off? That was one. The second question is, how do the finances work on the transmission lines themselves? So, let's take the first one first. So, the Public Utility Commission of Texas will establish a schedule in a rate case for utility that says how long that recovery goes on for. Those oil and gas pipelines you were referring to, those are competitive entities, different setup. And electric utilities in the state of Texas are fully regulated, which means they don't get to make a dollar that the PUC doesn't say they can make. They are fully regulated. How that will generally work is transmission lines will be on a depreciation schedule set by the Public Utility Commission of Texas. Broad strokes, you should expect it will be over 40 to 70 years, somewhere in that neighborhood, but that again is not something the utility controls, that's the regulator who decides that. Your second question was the finances. How is the money that is made on the transmission line dealt with? How that works is a company like Oncor, who is fully regulated, and the same would be true of every other TSP in the state, transmission service provider. They are able to recover apologies, I'm talking a lot here. They are able to recover a revenue requirement, which is the amount of money they invest in the system, plus a rate of return. And that rate of return is established by the Public Utility Commission of Texas, and that is the rate that they are able to make. And right now, that is somewhere in the 9% range. I don't remember the number exactly on the top of my head, but it's somewhere in that range is what they are able to make. They're not allowed to make more. They commonly do make a little less for various reasons, but they are capped at that and not allowed to make more than that on the facilities that they build. All right. Next question. Route 9, I believe that says 77, has the lowest estimated cost of $1.6 billion for a route including link S4, and there's a route 1251 with a cost of $1.8 million. Since Oncor isn't paying for this, but the ratepayers are, how much will it cost, how much weight will the cost be given in the process? Good questions. All right, so cost is one of about 30-ish factors that are considered by the Public Utility Commission of Texas as they determine what line should or should not be built. It is one, my personal opinion, and that is all this is my personal opinion, it is one of the more important factors they look at as they address it every single case, but it is one of a litany of factors that they consider. Other factors that are commonly part of that process are how long is the project, how many habitable structures are within 500 feet, cost of the project, how the project may affect, areas where the communities gather, think parks, think lakes, things like that. Those are what I would say are common factors that they weigh and consider. If you're interested in that entire list of what the Public Utility Commission of Texas considers, it is provided in two places. It is provided in 37056 of the Public Utility Regulatory Act, and it is provided in Chapter 25101 of the Rules of the Public Utility Commission of Texas. That is where you would go to find that entire list of factors. Okay, I'm going to skip this one because we've already covered each of these. Next question. Are there no other options for power? Is this the only way to transmit it? Short answer is yes. This is the way that we transmit power. If you have an idea of how else to do it and you can figure it out, congratulations, you have an excellent business idea. But as of right now, this is the way we do it. This kind of goes also to the question of why are we building at 765 as opposed to 345? Not a question on here, but I'll go ahead and address it. The commission made the decision to take the voltage up to 765 kV for a couple of reasons. This decision was made in the April-May timeframe of 2025. They did that for a couple of reasons. First of all, as power is transmitted across transmission lines, we lose power. So you put in 100 megawatts in the west, you don't get out 100 megawatts on the east. You lose power as it's transmitted. When you go up to a higher voltage, that becomes far less. You lose a lot less power due to the lower impedance at the higher voltage. One reason. More important than that, I believe I'm giving you my opinion on the reasons they made their decision. More important than that is it reduced the number of electric facilities that had to be built in the state by a substantial margin. When you look at power transfer, one 765 kV line will be able to move the equivalent of 345 kV transmission lines. So when you think about it from a dirt impact, how much ground is consumed, from a cost impact, how much does it cost to build the facility necessary?
I'm thinking about the future, so I have to come back and do this again.
That's right as well. And they're thinking about, her comment was, and they're thinking about the future so we don't have to do this over and over again. I think that also goes into it. But when you really stack that up, one 765 kV line will consume 200 feet of dirt. 345 kV lines will consume 160 feet of dirt, plus 160 feet of dirt, plus 160 feet of dirt. One 765 kV line costs about $7-ish million to build per mile. So one linear mile, somewhere in the neighborhood of $7 million a mile. If you just do the math on the cost estimates, that's about what it comes out to. 345 kV lines are somewhere in the neighborhood of $4-ish million a mile. So you've got 4, 8, 12 to transport the same power you can transmit with one line on 200 feet of right of way for about $7 million. So it is by far a more economical way to transmit power and more efficient as we have far less losses in the state. Again, that's all contained in the commission order that's filed in the docket that was the basis for these lines being approved with 765 kV. That's my 2 cents worth on the reasons for that decision, but the words of the Public Utility Commission of Texas, again, that is all provided in the direct testimony of Mr. Jared Gurley that's filed in the application.
So if you don't mind, go back, interesting deal, the 345 kV lines are in existence, okay? And I understand you can't take them down and take 3 years to do that and lose power, yada, yada. But why don't you use that same route and just step off 200 feet or whatever and build the line concurrently with that same route Or you've got something already existing there.
Give me a second, I'm gonna repeat his question. So his question was, we have 345 kV corridors in the state, we've had them since World War II. So they're here, they're established, they've been here for a long time. Why are we looking to blaze a new trail as opposed to paralleling those existing lines? Short answer is, we're doing both. So there are several spots, if you look at the transmission lines, and I would encourage all of you to do that tonight before you call it a night, to look in the other rooms, and you will see that there are many spots where the proposed links we have provided to Public Utility Commission of Texas are paralleling existing infrastructure, whether that's 345 kV or 138 kV. Now, truth be told, we don't have a line that goes stem to stern where we need to go. So it doesn't parallel it for its entirety, but we are doing that in several spots. The other piece I would say to that is there is also in the mind of some a question as to whether or not you should put lines with large carrying capacities next to each other. Because every once in a while in this state we have linear weather events that are straight line winds that are very strong, or we have a tornado that comes through and rips stuff up. And when you put those things side by side, you're kind of putting eggs in one basket. So I don't really have an opinion on that, and I don't know what the Public Utility Commission of Texas's opinion is on that, but that's an issue that they will deal with in these cases. If you look in our detailed data on routing factors, you will see that we calculate the amount of right-of-way parallel to existing corridors for every single route, because it's an important factor. So if you kind of go through, there's a table in the back of the environmental assessment, it's called 7-1, and it will provide the exact linear distance that it is parallel to existing transmission lines, because that is a common factor that the commission looks at. It's a good question.
Yeah, I got it.
Go ahead, sir.
On any of your maps, do you have any locations of the data centers that are being built in Texas?
No. Yeah. Let me try his question first. His question was, on any of our maps, do we have the location of data centers that are being built in the state of Texas? Short answer to the question is no, we do not. That's not the purpose of these projects. That's not why they're being built. Frankly, they're kind of something that has come about since these projects were approved.
Well, I just want to state some facts of that, because it says, this is from the Department of Energy. In 2023, it said that data centers were responsible for 4% of the electricity in the United States. And it says now, there's another report that says new data centers that are built will have capacities of 100 MW to 1,000 MW, which is roughly equivalent to the load of 80,000 homes to 800,000 homes. So data centers have to be playing a role in the electricity in Texas. And you need energy to get to those data centers. And I just think this is all what it's all about.
But they can't say.
So, let's be clear. If you look at the timing of when this was approved, it was before well standard is the data center occurred. If you look at the loads on which this project is based, it is based on oil, gas, and industrial loads. Since then, have there been a lot of data centers that pop up who want to consume a truckload of power? The answer to that question is yes. Is it impacting state energy policy? The answer to that question is yes. But it's not the fundamental need upon which these transmission lines were approved. And there are some, and I realize there are several that are in this proximate area that are both, I don't know if they're popular or unpopular, but regardless, I'm aware of them. But they are not the justification for why these lines are being built.
So Oncor's vice president of corporate strategy just said that Oncor, direct quote, is scaling up accordingly to meet the demand of these large loads. So you just said that the data centers do represent a big part of the large load. So is that true or is that not true?
It's absolutely true. It's just not the justification for this project. There are many, many other projects that are large load-based projects.
Okay, like give us some other examples.
Like the South Dallas projects that were recently approved in ERCOT, like the Muskogee projects that are in Central Texas. We could walk through a list of 20 or 30 of those. These projects are Permian Basin projects that were justified based on that study.
So what kind of electricity they gonna use in Permian Basin except run oil wells?
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't.
I said, all they got is oil wells out there. I mean, is that what they're getting it for, is to run more oil wells?
Not a great question. His question was, what is the power out there necessary for it? I will tell you that when you go into the study that was presented to the legislature, and you look at the studies that were put forward by ERCOT at the Public Utility Commission of Texas, those studies were based on 2 or 3 factors. One, the electrification of the Permian Basin. Today there's a lot of flaring gas, there's a lot of on-site diesel generation.
Build your plan.
That's right, it's very dirty in that Permian Basin. The goal is of many of those companies is to take that power from being on-site diesel generated and to then instead consume power off the electric grid. That's some of that load. Additionally, there's a big change in how a lot of that works with electric submersible pumps and things that are changing the load characteristics and the quantity of power that is necessary to fuel that industry, so to speak. And those are many of the factors that were part of that ERCOT study and part of the commission's findings on the justification for that load. There's additional drilling that is undoubtedly part of that, but those were some of the other major factors. Okay, let's ask questions on health pieces. We are done with this thing. We've addressed this one a little bit, but why can't you build a natural gas power generation in the Permian Basin? That's a much better question for the generation companies. That is not something that is in our power to be able to do by state law, although there are some of those that are working their way through the process. We've addressed this one a little bit as well. If we did not have the many data centers which require tremendous amounts of electricity, would we still need the new transmission lines in Central Texas? Short answer to that question is yes. The Permian Basin load needs are separate and apart from the data centers. For the most part, there is a substantial amount of work going on. You've probably heard of the ERCOT batch studies and what are called the regional transmission plans that are efforts to look at how do we study and how do we bring on the massive data center development that is trying to occur in the state right now.
It's hard for us as people with everything that we're dealing with the data centers, and then y'all come in with this, it's hard for us to not link the two together, because everything's turned upside down already anyways.
Her comment was it's hard, as a participant sitting here, to use an example, to separate the two, and I frankly understand that.
Yeah.
When you think about the life of a transmission line, and this is, well, when you think about a transmission line and how it comes to be, by the time we reach this spot, we've been working on this transmission line for somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 years. This one's a little different because it was ordered by the state as part of the Permian Basin plan. But what that means is the things that you're reading about in the paper about the Stargate facility in Abilene and the large data centers, there's probably several of them that I don't even know about. As you're reading about those that are trying to interconnect today, those are going to require transmission projects that are 4 years from now. Because the lifespan of when you start to plan a project, you then go to ERCOT, get approval for the project, you then do a routing study, you do all the dirt work, that's about a year of time. And then you come forward to the Public Utility Commission of Texas, that's about 6 to 9 months of time. Then you move forward. There's a lag there just due to the length of the process. Go ahead, ma'am.
So for this Permian Basin load, is there not any way you can bring in anything from New Mexico or, a different direction? Does it have to come from Texas and go this far?
Good question. So her question is, can you not bring the power in from New Mexico or from Oklahoma to the north, something like that? Short answer is no, you cannot. And the reason for that is Texas's electric grid is its own. They're very proud of that fact. ERCOT is a standalone electric grid, and Texas controls its own destiny with power based on that fact. People have different opinions on that. Is it good, is it bad? I'll tell you, there was a quote read at the Business and Commerce Committee yesterday down in Austin that Chairman Schwartner read that walked through the power prices that we have in Texas. Texas is it is number 10 in the nation for the lowest power prices in the nation. That is primarily due to the fact that you have your own electric grid and you are able to have control of it. It's one of the main factors to it. So there is good and bad about that, but that's the reason the answer to that question is no. Is that you cannot import power from New Mexico or from Oklahoma because the ERCOT grid is not what is called synchronously connected to those other grids. We have the ability to move small amounts of power, about 1,200 megawatts of power between Texas and CFE which is the Mexican electric grid, and the grids to the north and the east, but they are small amounts of power, and they have to happen through a very complex system that I'm not even gonna try and explain.
Okay, so I gotta piggyback off what you said just a second ago. So you said 3 to 4 years this project's been in place, right? That y'all started it essentially to get to this point. Okay, but with that being said, and the project being in place, that means y'all been choosing these areas and looking at these routes and stuff and figuring out where this transmission line and how it's gonna get from one place to the other, but yet none of us were notified until recently.
Good question. All right, so you may have heard that, but it's really, Amy's all the same. She said, if you've been working on these projects for 3 to 4 years, why are we not getting notified until a little recently? Fair question.
And the turnaround is very quick.
And so, here's the short answer to that, or a long answer.
As long as it explains it, I don't care how long it
It has
is.
been studied on an electrical basis for several years. If you kind of walk through what happened, you had the bill that was passed at the legislature required a transmission plan for the permanent basin. That then went to the Public Utility Commission of Texas, where it sat for several months as they debated, how do we do this, how do we study that? They tasked ERCOT with that study. ERCOT then spent, I don't remember the number of months, somewhere in the neighborhood of 6, maybe 8 months, putting together a Permian Basin reliability plan. That plan came forward with 3 potential options and 3 potential voltages. They had a 345 kV plan, they had a 500 kV plan, and they had a 765 kV plan. They brought all of those options to the Public Utility Commission of Texas. Commission looked at it, they approved either the 345 or the 760, so there's, sorry, it's more complicated than I want it to be. They had base projects and import projects as part of it. They approved the baseline projects in October of 24. They did not make a decision on these import projects, this is an import project, until May of 2025. And what they were deciding in that interim time, 1, they made ERCOT restudy it. 2, they had what was called a regional transmission plan that was done. There were several other things happening at that point, but the commission took more time to decide, do I build 345 kV where I have to build a lot more different corridors to import the power, or do I build 765 kV and build 3 corridors? And so they spent that time in May of 2025 is when that order came out and said, we're gonna build 3 765 kV corridors as opposed to all of the various 345 kV corridors. Go to work utilities on that. That is when the routing, the dirt side of this really kicked off, which is why we're arriving here. So those prior process is primarily electrical. That is looking at how do you make that connection, how do you import, how do you move the power, not the where of the routing of the project.
So you said that this all happened May 2025. So in April of 2025, there's a letter, there's a filing receipt in the interchange, that Google submitted a letter to the PUC recommending this approach, recommending not to upgrade the existing structures, but they recommended it was most cost effective to do all of these through here, the 765 line. So did that not have any sway over the ultimate decision? They sponsored a study too and submitted that too, but I have a hard time believing that's not biased whenever it's gonna benefit them directly.
So the question, I'm gonna repeat the question real quick. The question was, in April, I think you said?
April of
April of
2025.
2025, Google filed a letter with the commission?
With the PUC.
With the
yes.
PUC.
And they sponsored a study.
Recommending 765 kV and provided a study with it.
Yes.
And her question was, did that have an impact on the decision to go 765? Short answer to your question, ma'am, is I don't know. Those Public Utility Commission of Texas folks are the ones who made that decision. And they debated and discussed it in open meeting. I don't remember that being mentioned, but did it affect their decision? I just don't know. I apologize.
He can't legally say yes or no.
So I've been told over and over from an Oncor rep that the southern counties have 0 advantage over us in the northern county. Now they've had 306 days knowing about this. We've had 30. So before February 19th, have any lawsuits of any kind been filed from May of 25 until February 19th against this project, against Oncor, against PUG, any lawsuits at all?
Not that I'm aware of. So his question was, since the May of 2025 till now, have there been lawsuits filed against Oncor as part of this project? I am not aware, is the answer to the question. Next question I've got here. How close to a home can you build? Answer the question. So you cannot have a structure within the 200 feet of right. That is the absolute minimum. So a structure at the closest it could be would be 100 feet from the center line. It has to be outside of the 200 feet of right of way. Part two of the question. How far apart are the towers? We talked about this a little bit already, but it's basically 1,400 to 1,500 feet. This will depend greatly on the terrain that is being crossed and upon several other factors. There will be times where it's only 1,000 feet between the structures when you're trying to span something. There will be variation to that. Generally, you should assume somewhere in that 1,400 feet between towers. Next question is, at the intersection of links, how many towers? I don't know that I really understand the question, but if you look at the routing maps, you have various links. You'll have S4 come into J6. And those are different options that the Public Utility Commission of Texas can consider and select. At those angle points, there will be different transmission structures that are utilized. So there will be generally 3 transmission structures utilized for the project at least. And maybe more than that by the time we're done. But you're going to have a tangent structure, which is used when you are going straight, and then you will have a small angle structure that is used for, think about it as turns less than about 25 degrees. And you'll have what's called a dead end structure, which is when you have a large angle being turned. And that is a more robust tower because you have to be able to support the conductor in 2 different directions. So you'll have different towers at some of those points. Go ahead, sir.
93 towers, will it have guy wires on them, or are they freestanding?
So plan right now is that they will be self-supported towers without guide wires. That is the detailed engineering part, so take that with a grain of salt, because those are the detailed engineerings that happen in the aftermath based on soil, based on the actual location, and a lot of those factors. So like I said, that is the plan for now, but that is the detailed engineering that will determine that at that point. Go ahead, ma'am.
So with that, when the PUC decides if this is a go, will there be one route and it can zig and zag, or, how does it work? Or will they do multiple, however they see fit?
Her question is, I assume you're looking at the routing map there,
Yes.
and her question is, when it's all done, what will be approved, and how does it traverse from, long, short dinosaur in its course? The Public Utility Commission of Texas has the jurisdiction to use any of those links that are provided in that process. As you look at our application, we've provided 130 different routes that we've identified. But they could very well look at that and say, no, this route goes north, I don't want to go north there, I want to come south, I want to go east. They can utilize those links in a manner that they choose. The one limitation primarily, and I don't even know if it's a limitation on them, but it is normally part of the process, is that there's a requirement that the path of the transmission line be forward progressing. In other words, you can't be going east, go north, go back west, and then come east. You've got to be forward progressing in the direction of travel.
That it'll just be one.
Yes, and that's a really good point. It will be one out. Maybe I've got some folks holding up in here. The old Highlander show where the line in the show was, there can be only one at the end of the contest, but regardless. Yes, in a routing case, there will be only one. There are 130 different routing options before the Public Utility Commission of Texas today. The rest of those options that are not selected essentially disappear the day the commission makes their decision. Our obligation as a transmission company is to provide routing options to the Public Utility Commission of Texas. We identify a suite of them. They are required to be geographically diverse. In other words, that we are required to have space between them. If you go to the other rooms, if you look at our routing maps, our goal is to have 3 to 5 geographically separate corridors in every portion of the study area. That's not always possible. There are some times where there are massive constraints that make that impossible. But that is our goal, is that we can kind of, in a project that's going east to west, I can have a stack, north and south, of 3 to 5 separate corridors that allow the commission to make their choice as to which option they view as preferable. We don't get to decide which route they choose. We don't even really advocate for one over the other. We simply provide the options, we provide the data on those options, and it is the Public Utility Commission of Texas, those 5 individuals appointed by the governor, to choose which of those routes come forward. And I'm gonna add one thing to that, because someone's gonna call me on it here in a minute. The Public Utility Commission of Texas Schools do require Oncor to pick what's called a best needs route, which means what route identified in your application best complies with the Public Utility Commission of Texas's routing criteria. So we are required by rule to denominate that. You will read about that in the testimony of one of the Oncor witnesses, but you will also see, if you come to the hearing and you participate, that that's not the route that we're advocating for. We're not pushing for one route over another. We are rather indifferent as to which route is approved. We just want to provide options to the Public Utility Commission of Texas for them to choose. And that is why the testimony that comes from folks like y'all is real important in that process. Go ahead, sir. You can
I just
finish.
want to make sure I understand, because I've been told by some people that there's like an 85% chance it's going to be south of I-20, but it seems like what you're saying is, of all those routes, are you saying that, yeah, it could go I-20, below I-20, but it could also then, as long as there's forward progress made, come back up and get back into our area as well. So there's not a single route that anybody's fighting for. Everybody's just fighting to keep it off of themselves, basically, right?
Yeah.
It's a fair summary, honestly. So anyone who's giving you those probabilities, you should look at those with some real skepticism, right? Because none of them know. And just like me, I have no idea where the Public Utility Commission of Texas will approve the route. Best thing I would tell you is to get involved and make your voice heard as to what you want the Public Utility Commission of Texas to consider. His question, just to reiterate it, was a route can be on the south, on the east, it can then come all the way back up to the north, and then go back to its endpoint, and vice versa. And that is absolutely true. I could walk you through several dockets in the past where a far less direct route than was available was selected. And so there are very good examples of that.
So to clarify though, there's only one line. It's not 2 lines with a link in between them or anything like that. One line. Hopefully.
Yes. So the question was, there's only going to be one line, and it will be contiguous. It will be continuous, I guess is the right way to say it. There won't be 2 different lines. The Public Utility Commission of Texas, at the end of the day, will select one route. And when I use the word route, I am referring to something that goes from one endpoint to the other endpoint, the stations on the end. When you look at our maps, you'll see links, right? They're there's normally a letter and a number together, like your house maybe on link S4 was when I saw it in this list. So those links will be put together to create a route, which is end to end.
But it's all one.
It's one.
No matter how it goes.
Correct. Yeah. There will be one selected that gets from the station on the west to the station on the east.
Follow up on that. So the main goal is to get from point A to point B, right? Generally. So if you look at that line, we're 35 miles north of that line, 35 miles north. And it costs roughly, based on the ERCOT report, $3 to $5 million per mile to build this line. So coming up this way and adding this line adds somewhere around $500 to $600 million to that line that is not necessary. Does Oncor make money, like, is Oncor's goal to be as short as possible, or do they make more money as long as possible?
So let me try to restate that. So the routes that come to the far north, I think you said are about 35 miles.
north of the direct line from
Okay.
Big Spring to Glen Rose.
All right. I have no idea if that is accurate, but let's roll with it for a
I've done
second.
research, yeah.
So bottom line is, as you have to come further north, your transmission line gets longer. Because the endpoints here are pretty close to the same latitude, right? So every mile you go north is another mile you have to come back south. In other words, the route is longer. And then I've lost the question that came at the end of that. I apologize.
Does Oncor make more money the shorter the line or longer the line?
His next question was, how does that work to Oncor and economics? The short answer, if you look at our testimony, we don't voice much of an opinion on that. How does Oncor make money on it? Oncor makes money on how much the line costs and the return on that, which is set by the commission. However, at that time, it is a true statement that for every mile north you go, you have to come back south. And that does drive costs. Length and angles are the two main factors that drive costs of the transmission line.
Is it right?
I'm sorry.
Is it right to say then, if you come out of the way, you lose that much more electricity?
But that would also be a true statement, yes. Yeah. And that's why these decisions are made by the Public Utility Commission of Texas, not by the utility. The utility doesn't have the ability to determine where the line is built. It provides options to the commission, and the commission makes the decision as to exactly where the line should be built. Go ahead, sir.
Wait, hang on a little bit on that. Can you go in more detail? What do you mean by Oncor does not have an opinion on if it's long or short?
We just want a route
Well,
approved
I mean, like,
to build.
because if the line is longer, that theoretically means Oncor is going to make more money on this project. No? Fair statement?
Yes, that is a true statement because the revenue requirement is calculated off of the cost of
And
the
Oncor
project.
is a for-profit company.
Oncor is a regulated utility, and there's a difference between those two. Agreed. Go ahead, sir.
So, basically,
Hey,
the
we're
discussion,
capitalists.
where's the beginning of the line? Glen Rose?
It depends on, I think about it as being on the west and the eastern side being the terminus, but that's just in my
It's
head.
basically going from Glen Rose to Forest Center, am I correct? In that area.
Generally,
Okay, and like everybody's saying, we're coming, you're coming, wanting to come, one of your routes is up north. This electricity cannot be stored unless it's a battery. After so many miles, you're gonna lose electricity. So you've gotta generate more or boost it up to get it out there, which is another big expense, along with the extra line, am I correct?
so I don't know exactly how to answer your question. We don't boost it, we don't generate it, we don't do either of those two. We're just transporting, that's correct. So I apologize, sir, I don't know how to answer your question.
So what the total line is out there to do is to give them electricity in West Texas, correct?
That is the need basis for the projects to
So
serve the
there's a
Permian Basin.
possibility that we could have, somebody's gonna have to generate maybe even half to twice as much electricity if you come north rather than going straight.
I don't know the answer to your question, sir. I apologize. I don't.
Because you're gonna lose.
Because I don't know, that's right. There is a calculation that one of these smart engineers in the other room could answer for you to calculate out what is the line loss, and for the extra, say, if we use this gentleman's number, I think he said 35 miles, if that extra 35 miles would equate to some amount of additional loss. I just don't know what that is or whether or not it's material.
It's a substantial one.
And I apologize, I'm doing a really bad job getting through these questions. How far from a Doppler radar line does a transmission line need to be? Those are, it's a fair question, especially since you have an Air Force base here in the area. I apologize. Go ahead. No. Those are items that are marked with specific distances on the map. I apologize, I do not remember off the top of my head what that distance is, but there is one, and there are different radiuses created around different radar installation facilities. There's also something called a VORTAC that the military uses out here. Those are also placed on the transmission system, on our maps, and adjustable. Go ahead.
The answer is 1.37 miles, and your S5 line is about 16th to an 8th of a mile off that Dice-Stopper Road. I don't know if y'all were aware of that.
So Dice has reached out to us, and they are doing, as you can imagine, and they are doing an analysis of the transmission line and proximity to Dice. I don't know what those results are yet, but they are doing that right now. Question on how does this affect cell phones? The different hertz that you're staying on. Sorry, go ahead, sir.
It's not actually a question, it's more of a little statement. I think what burns everybody's butter around here so much is you guys are a transmission company, and you got a customer out there for retail for profit business, Permian Basin is callable customer. And the state of Texas has decided they're more valuable than we are, and they're gonna give you the right to condemn our property to do what you want to do.
Right.
That's what really burns everybody.
Yeah.
I understand the perspective.
Exactly. I know it's legal, but it's not right.
I understand. I'm jumping through several of these because we've already discussed several of these on the Albany. So this question is, if the line is placed on a particular landowner, are there any restrictions placed on the property? Answer to that question is yes. Those would be provided in that easement document. Again, this is outside the scope of what will be determined at the Public Utility Commission of Texas. But to answer the question, provide you some of those. The easements that are required are non-exclusive easements, meaning that you still have the right to traverse the property, use the property. Obviously, there's an impact on the property during that construction phase. After that occurs, there is far less of a in-person impact on the property. What are the limitations that apply after an easement is put in place? Generally, Oncor will have the right to own, operate, and maintain the transmission line across the property. With that right comes the right to obviously erect structures, put the tower in place, build and operate the line. What limitations does that place on you as the landowner? You will not be able to build structures within that right of way. You will also have a limitation on an ability of fencing that right of way off, because the utility has to be able to traverse it. Now, if you want to fence it off, and there will be many of these situations, what they will do is they will require a gate to be put in that so they are able to linearly traverse that right of way. Common question that's not in here, but that we get a lot here, and it's been coming up a lot in the hearings. If you have oil and gas developments on your property, how is this impacted? Oncor will acquire no mineral rights from the area underneath the transmission line. You can continue to extract minerals from if you have minerals on your property. You are able to get access to. You cannot have surface facilities within that 200-foot right of way. Water wells, oil and gas wells, any of those facilities.
Can I follow with your structures here, Larry? Since in our area, the lines one of the projections is to go north and south across this. Okay, we already have two transmission lines running east and west. Okay? And one of them's on the steel pole, pretty good size. It's 200 foot roughly tall. The other one's on wooden poles, it's shorter. Since you can't be 200 foot within a structure, how close is this line going to become to those lines?
Is it designed to cross them?
It's going to have to cross them because the other two run east and west, and this is proposed north and south.
So that limitation, so what you would have in his, let me try this again. He's got two existing transmission lines on his property. One's a metal pole structure and one's a wooden pole structure.
One's on the north side of the property, one's on the south side.
And the transmission line that's part of this docket will cross those transmission lines. And his question is, how does that work? So what will happen in that situation is when you get to the detailed engineering that'll happen after a route is approved, the structure spotting will take into account that crossing. And your structures for the transmission line will be for the new transmission line, will be offset from the existing transmission line. And the wire will cross those existing transmission lines. I would assume above it, but I do not know the answer to that until that engineering occurs. But your new structures for the transmission line will be offset from that existing right of way so that those current structures will exist in the middle of that span.
And you spoke of the electromagnetic field there. So I'm gonna end up with double the electromagnetic field.
Triple.
Oh,
Triple.
triple.
Three times.
Might work out. My fish, my turkeys, my pigs.
My grandkids.
Your pigs.
Yeah. And you.
Next question on here. Sorry, sir, go ahead.
Just changing gears here, timeline, I know PUC's looking at August decision. They choose one route, how fast does this thing move?
After the approval?
Yeah.
All right, so the question is, what's your kind of timeline
Ballpark.
after approval? All those details are in the application. I'm gonna spitball it for you because that's the best I got. But after the case is approved, so let's say, what is August 8th?
You said
Is that
August.
right?
August 8th.
Okay,
August, yeah.
all right. So August, let's assume we get approved exactly in 6 months. That's August 19th. What would happen at that point is you basically got a 30-day period where it will sit at the commission, where the commission can reevaluate if they so choose. So you have that 30-day period. After that period, you would see right-of-way work start on it. That is when you would have a landman, someone like that, come out and talk to you about getting access to your property for surveys, things of that nature, so that detailed engineering can be done. So the first thing that would happen is you would have surveys happen. You would need right of entry onto the property, so for surveys, there would be geotechnical work done where they do a small boring to figure out what's the quality of the soil underneath. After that, it would be the right of way acquisition. And I do not know today whether the plan is to start on the west, the east, or start on both ends and work towards the middle. I don't know the answer to that question. But that's what would happen next. You would have right-of-way be acquired, and then it would be those phases of construction we walked through at the beginning of the meeting. I apologize, some people are still here, some people aren't, when we talk about that. So I can walk through that as well as if you would like.
No, that's fine. And if you build 250 miles of line, does that take a year, 2 years, 10 years?
These projects are all supposed to be in service, these import projects, by 2030, which means construction is done and the project is energized by 2030.
Wow, so 2 or 3 years.
That is the construction plan. And again, that goes back to the acuteness of the electrical need and the issues that are trying to be resolved. Next question. Were the intervenor packages only mailed to landowners with a habitable structure on the property? No. Short answer to that question. Intervenor packages were mailed to 2 types of individuals. People with a habitable structure within 520 feet of the center line of the project. And 2, people who are, and this is defined by rule at the Public Utility Commission of Texas. Let me back up and address that. The commission requires direct notice to be sent to 2 types of individuals, which are people who are directly affected. Directly affected under those commission rules is 1, if you have a house within 520 feet, or 2, you have property that would be directly impacted, meaning an easement would be needed across your property. So you could have vacant land with no house on it and get a packet because an easement would be required based on one of the proposed routes, or you could have no easement placed on your property, but your residence or your garage is still within 520 feet. Either of those items occurs, you tick either of those boxes, you receive direct mail notice of it. And then in addition to direct mail notice, you also, you probably have seen at this point, it is published in newspapers of general circulation in the counties, because like all records, you're gonna miss somebody as you work off of tax parcel boundaries. And so the notices are published in newspapers, in various counties, and several other ways to try and get the word out on the project. I apologize, did I see a hand over here? I saw that one.
We talking about word of mouth.
There's some of that.
What about the sound? The sound that they put off.
Give me just a second. Go ahead, man. You've been patient.
Well,
Oh, sorry.
just north of Albany, 5 minutes from here. One of these power lines goes from Graham to Abilene. That's why we have a bias in the pure Oklahoma, Texas, and being that area. Okay, so that's 60 years ago, they run that thing across the ground. Easter Sunday, it's 1998, we had a tornado on the course. Next day, we're out on horses, don't use horses anymore, we're that big. I ran into a gentleman from Oncor, I don't know if Oncor
we'll
want
take
to,
it.
if we get any more money from that 5,000, since the Oncor house said they didn't tell you you're enough. $5,000 a mile is what I understood. You guys are gonna hold up a whole lot more money than 5,000 a mile.
You're way outside my jurisdiction, sir. I do not know the answer to that question. Go ahead, ma'am. I apologize.
I know you can't pinpoint the exact line to the inch, but when I look at the line near my house, it's about a half mile from my back fence. It's not on my property. And my house is about a third of a mile from that back fence. So why did I get it unless where you've got the line right now can come within the 520 feet a mile?
Great question. I don't know the exact answer, but I'm happy to look at a map with you when this is over and try to figure that out. But the short answer to the question is the route and where it is on the map is the only location that is before the Public Utility Commission.
But how much can it shift?
How much wiggle?
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a hard question to answer. In all of our measurements for the 500 feet, we assumed 520 feet. In this case, as a, basically taking into account some aerial inaccuracies as we're working off of aerials. Outside of that, what we are doing is we are looking at what's, it's hard for me to answer, because I don't know exactly we need a map to answer your question, but we're looking at the property lines, the section lines, and where that transmission line corridor is illuminated. But there should not be a movement of several thousand feet, which is what it sounds like. Yeah, I'm happy to look at a map with you and try to answer that question better. It's just a little hard without a map.
He doesn't like to talk to you.
Oh, sorry, sir.
Yes, sir. Has Oncor made their best route selection at this point?
Yes, sir. It's a requirement in the application when we file it.
Is that now that we've been tagged, that was a change, y'all had suggestions to change to make this and give us 30 days notice. Y'all already made a selection previous to that. That's your best route.
Yes, the best means route was filed on February 19th with the application. If you all haven't seen that, it is route, hang on a sec, I believe it's 255. Let me check my names. I apologize, 552. I flipped that around a little bit. It is route 552, and all of the links that comprise that route are laid out, frankly, in the package tonight. It is available. But, so, sir, I don't know if I've answered your question, but it was picked as of the day we required to file the application because it's a filing requirement. And generally, that route, if you look at it, is kind of running through the center of the study area. That's generally kind of where it flows. It's a little north of Bluffdale, then a little north of Stevensville. And then kind of traverses the study area. I'm starting on the east. But if you want, in the next rooms, they can kind of walk you through exactly where on the map that route sits. So again, that is just the route that we thought the best method was. So to be clear on that, it has no weight beyond that. This is a fair question. This is probably something that several of y'all have come up with. Will there be any additional movement to the links in the application after it is filed? Short answer is no. Once the application is filed, those are the links that are before the commission for consideration. So those links are static and will be static throughout the process of the proceeding. Every once in a while, you will have route modifications that are requested by a landowner. If the property owner is requesting that modification and submits it to the commission, in certain circumstances, those are things that are considered and approved as part of the docket, but they would not be coming from us, they would be coming from the landowner at this point. Ma'am, were you trying to ask a question? Next question, how many 765 kV lines will fit into a 200-foot easement? Short answer, one. One transmission line will fit within that 200-foot easement. It will have 3 conductors on it, 3 phases of electricity. And each of those phases will be made up of a bundle of wires. Essentially, that it will be one 3-phase transmission line from end to end.
Is it expandable?
Is it expandable? Meaning, can you add more? No. Short answer is no. At least that's not the way it is being designed and built right now. Because essentially how that would be is you have to be overbuilding it structurally than what is required. Every once in a while, there are transmission lines that are built with the additional capacity to add another line. For example, we built one. Thomas, what was Ramhorn Hill? Was that 4 years ago?
I think it's about right 4 years.
So about 4 years ago, we built a transmission line that basically went through the city of Flower Mound in north of Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. It extended from there to the west for about 60 miles. In that instance, we were ordered to build the 345 kV line with sufficient structural integrity to build a 138 kV line on the bottom of it. So in that situation, that order came directly from the Public Utility Commission of Texas to do that. That is not present here, and I'm not aware of anywhere where 765 kV has been built with an underground. So I think that is another limitation. This is a question on ranching impact and impact on it. We've kind of walked through this a couple of times at this point, but there will not be specific limitations placed on ranching activity within that 200-foot right-of-way. During construction times, there will obviously be more impact on the property than there will be posts, but there are not express prohibitions on what can and cannot be done within that right-of-way during that process.
Hey, Jared, there's a lady.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I was just wondering, do you know, it's really windy where we live here. Is there a certain swing to those lines that's gonna throw what it's emitting off even farther than what you say?
Good question. All right, so her question is about the wind in the area, which is pervasive, and how does that impact the transmission lines? Fair question. So what she's referring to is what we would refer to as blowouts, which is your, I don't have a great way to demonstrate this, but if my arm here is your conductor and it's hanging between those two structures, when that wind hits, it's gonna swing.
Yes.
And yes, it will swing, it will blow out to the side. That is a true statement. That 200-foot right-of-way is designed to accommodate that blowout to the maximum extent that it can occur. I do not remember off the top of my head the wind rating that these transmission lines, I'm sorry, sir, I see you having a hard time hearing, I'm trying. I do not remember off the top of my head the wind rating of these transmission lines, but each of these structures will be built to a specific wind rating, and it's something like 100 or 120 miles per hour of straight line wind is what they're designed to. And that is how you get that calculation for the 200-foot of right-of-way. So short answer to that is, even under maximum blowout conditions, that conductor will remain within that 200-foot right-of-way that would be acquired. Go ahead, sir.
That tornado that came across us, the Oncor gentleman said that it was ours built to withstand 500-mile-an-hour winds.
That's robust. Okay. Go ahead.
On the wind front, we need to get consideration about the fire risk. I mean, there's a line just south of town on the east side of 6 that caught fire 2 years ago, and the fire got within 100 yards of my house. What's the fire risk, and what are you guys doing about it?
So it's a fair question. I don't know anything about that line that you're referring to or that event. His question was generally, how does fire risk work on transmission lines and how is that being accommodated? So it's taken into account in several different ways. First of all, there is a large system resiliency plan that Oncor has put forward that deals directly with wildfire risk, which is a really long document. I'm not going to go into it a lot here. This line in particular, how is it done and how is wildfire participated? This actually came up the last hearing that occurred 2 weeks ago in Austin. There were questions about this. And how the engineer answered that in that case is, These lines are designed because of their voltage and because of their height. They are designed to de-energize extremely fast. I think his answer was 6 cycles, and a cycle is a 60th of a second. So they are designed specifically so that they, I keep thinking that's me. They are designed so that they can de-energize extremely quickly to mitigate those type of risks. Fire is one of those reasons. Go ahead, man.
Can I follow up on the fire? A friend of mine's a retired fireman, and he said it's impossible to fight a fire under those downs because of the electricity and the smoke. Is that, have you heard that?
That is the first time I've heard that. No, I have not heard that previously. Okay, next question. Can people still intervene and will you object? I've received this question a couple times tonight before I came in here. The intervention deadline, I think someone brought it up earlier, the intervention deadline in the case has passed. I think if you look at the docket, you will see that there are still motions to intervene rolling into that proceeding. Oncor will not object if folks still want to intervene and be involved in this proceeding. So the short answer to that question is no, we will not be objecting if folks are intervening late. Our general philosophy on these things is we want public involvement. We want folks to be able to be heard in front of the Public Utility Commission.
Hey, Jared, you should mention the testimony date. You covered written testimony earlier, but the testimony date being on the 8th.
Yeah, great question. This is Mike Grave on the back with Oncor. Good point he's making. There is a testimony deadline in addition to an intervention deadline. That testimony deadline is April 8th. What that means is if you want to submit testimony for the Public Utility Commission of Texas to consider, you have to file that by April 8th. A very important deadline in the case. In fact, folks who have intervened in the case, if they do not file testimony by that deadline, will be dismissed from the case. So it is a very important date that's coming up next week in the case. And again, I want to repeat this because it's important. That date is April 8th. Testimony has to be filed with the Public Utility Commission of Texas if you want that testimony to be considered in the document. Go ahead, ma'am.
Is there a form for that? I thought when we intervened, we would send a form or a packet, and I haven't.
There is not a form for the testimony.
Okay.
The testimony is basically a written statement of, think about it like if you watch any lawyer show on TV, which I really like to play, but if you watch them, think about what happens when they're up there and they're saying their case of all the things they want to consider. That's at the highest level what that testimony looks like.
Hey, Jared, sorry, you should mention statement of position, which is, you can write a letter, but you should use those words.
That's right, there is a second option as well that's called a statement of position. These are different things. A statement of position is, hey, this is my feelings about the case, but I'm not asking it to be put into evidence. A piece of testimony means this is a sworn statement that I want to put in evidence, and then if you put that in evidence, you also have to be present at the hearing, and there will be cross-examination on that piece of evidence that you are putting in. So they are very different things, statement of position and a piece of testimony, and one does come with that obligation to be present for cross-examination and at the hearing on the merits.
And both keep you in the case.
And both keep you in the case, that's right, both keep you from being dismissed in the case. So, go ahead.
So what's the way to be an intervener?
So to be an intervener, you have to basically file a request to intervene in the docket. That is the form.
What's the weight of it?
Well, the weight of it? Apologies. So his question is, what is the weight of intervening in the case? If you intervene in the case, what that means is you are a party to the case, which means you have a right to submit testimony, you have a right to ask questions, you have a right to participate in the hearing on the merits. You would have basically full access to the case. It doesn't have weight, like evidentiary weight, if that's your question. It doesn't have that. The testimony is what would be considered evidence.
It's just an application to become.
Correct. Becoming an intervener means I am a party, I want to participate. The testimony is the evidence that comes forward.
Step of being an intervener.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
So, you said that we have to be available to testify, to answer questions
Yes, ma'am.
in Austin?
Or virtual. There's a virtual option. Her question was, do I have to be available in Austin for the cross-examination? And the answer is, this hearing is designed to be a hybrid hearing, so there will be in-person participation, and there will also be a virtual option if you're out there in Austin.
And will we have more than 48 hours notice? Then it's our turn to speak.
Yes, within a certain range. Let me explain that real quick. The days of the hearing, I believe this is scheduled to be a 5-day hearing in Austin. And I apologize, ma'am, I don't have a date off the top of my head. But yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's in your packets, and it will be one of those 5 days. And as that hearing progresses, there will be an ability to kind of earmark when that would be. But generally, all I can tell you right now is it will be one of those 5 days.
May 4th to 8th?
That sounds right, yes.
Yeah.
Hearing on the merits?
Yes, hearing on the merits.
So she was just saying, May 4th through the 8th will be the hearing on the merits that will be held in Austin. Thank you for the date. Sir, go ahead.
I just gonna ask you, man, do you think we kinda got a fair shake around here when everybody else had 306 days and we got 30? Is that fair? Is that, in your thinking, does that seem fair? Because we can't prepare, we didn't get all this information in time to even go over it, and we're not lawyers, we're kinda overwhelmed with the situation.
Sir, that's an almost impossible question for me to answer.
I kinda figured it would. I really did.
At some point, you have to be done studying a project and you have to file it. And that is
Well,
always.
why did they have 306 days and we had 30?
I understand, and that is always going to render an unsatisfactory answer for somebody in that process. So I do understand the point.
Well, I got one, we're gonna render one.
Did you have a question?
Yes, I
ma'am?
want to
Sorry.
follow up on that. So the process, obviously, y'all failed on the process because everyone here just found out 30 days, prior to this. So you failed, and now you're working backwards. You're trying to work backwards somewhat, because this meeting should have been held, if it was held February the 19th or whenever, we should have been notified way in advance than 30 days. And second of all, I just want you to know, these people in this room, they make their living off of the land. They make their living off of the cattle, off of the hunting. Brian Cope, that's what he lives off of. And you are destroying their livelihood. So I'm just telling you, the citizens of this county will fight you, because you're not gonna put this in our backyards or ranches that have been here for over 100 years. We will fight you until we don't have another breath in our body. Because we have been, it is not fair, sir. It is not fair. And I'm just telling you, look at these faces. These are the ones that they can't make. You take 200 yards or whatever down a whole thing and take his stock tank out, they can't make it. They're done.
Go ahead, sir.
You may have said this at the beginning, but just out of curiosity, do you work for Oncor or do you work for B&E?
I work for B&E.
Okay, so everybody knows, just to be clear, this is their attorney, it's not a representative of Oncor.
Hi, my name is Mike Grable and I work for Oncor. My great-great-grandfather's ranch in Throckmorton County was established more than 100 years ago. My sister's in-laws are from Albany and still keep their house here. I understand what you were saying and I understand your frustration.
It is it is our livelihood.
I understand.
It is our ranch. It is their home. It is, you look at all these people. This is our community. This is who we stand.
Completely understand.
Okay.
This isn't going to fully address some of your concerns. I've heard on getting a lawyer, and that's difficult. On the other hand,
It's impossible, because guess what? 306 days ago, everyone got every lawyer in Texas. Yes.
The other factor there, the reason when we do public meetings, we take feedback and routes change. And in some cases, as in this one, this study area grows to new routes. even within those areas, Buffalo Gap, say, not far away, the line, has routes that were going through there. Some of those changed based on the feedback we got. Some of those landowners learned on February 19th, just like you did. I know that doesn't make anyone in Shackelford or Jones or Stevens counties feel any better, but it does change, and it does change for other landowners. I just wanted to share that as well.
Okay, good, that's a great question. What authority do you have to transverse these lines? What authority does Oncor have to say, we've decided we don't wanna go this way? That was my question, so you don't have to, but how much authority does Oncor have to say that? Like, we heard from all these people and it destroys this whole little community. So how much authority do you have in this say-so?
I mean, this came out of nowhere.
All
of a sudden.
I understand your feelings.
All of a sudden,
Go to the mailbox. You get
we
it.
went to the mailbox, and it was the biggest surprise of our lives. And and let me tell you, y'all put on a good show today, but it reminds me of a cat in a litter box trying to cover up the mess. No, it's a mess.
We're here for y'all to deliver feedback, and we appreciate your concerns. There are questionnaires, by the way, on the other side that we are planning to file in the docket. So if you've been in here the whole time and not over there, by all means, go over there. Some of the things Jaron has referenced with respect to maps and the ability to talk to engineers. It was a, relatively small crowd over there. So they asked how we're doing, and I said, nobody leave, because folks here will likely want to come over there and check things out. If you have not, you should do so. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get some water. But yeah, no kidding. I don't know how you talk this long. But yeah, you should do that. And happy to answer any other questions. I understand it's a fast process.
Say we met with the Shackelford, how much authority does Oncor have to say, to change the?
Oh, I see. I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question at first. The route, thank you very much. The routes are filed.
Oh, there are, because they were filed February 19th, so therefore you really don't have.
The short answer is we don't.
Okay.
At this point.
Okay, and that, my question's in there, so.
They're filed at the commission at this point, and they're static until the commission makes a decision.
So basically, you're just trying to work backwards and.
We're trying to be responsive to what we've been asked to do,
Okay.
and we were asked to come and provide an opportunity. That's what we're trying to do tonight.
So what we have.
Go ahead, sir. Hang on a second, this guy's had his hand up for a while. Go ahead, sir.
Is there a chance for the application's been filed, right? Obviously, before we even had a chance to do anything. Is there a chance you'll refile your application or amend the application based on anything, the response to this meeting today, anything we've said?
No, we do not have an ability to amend that application at this point. Go ahead, sir.
So, to me, it sounds like we're getting information from Oncor, which is great, but it lies in our ability to speak with the PUC to say, hey, you are the guys that are gonna make the decision which route we're gonna go. So that's where our plan of attack needs to be, hey, here's our testimony why it's not gonna be a great idea to come this way or whatever. And that kind of correct?
Yeah, that is the status, right? So his point was, I'm gonna rephrase that, you can tell me if I get it wrong. His point was, it sounds like our point is not to talk to you, Oncor, our point at this juncture, what we need to do is talk to the PUC.
And I'm getting information from Oncor.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Frankly, our part of this process is to provide the options. We have done that, the options are now before the Public Utility Commission of Texas. Your audience at this point is now the Public Utility Commission of Texas, who will render the decision. And this kind of goes to your question as well as to, will a link go away? Will it be a change? No, it will not. But there's gonna be a heck of a lot of links that don't get selected, right? 85% of them are not gonna get
But
selected.
you don't have, Oncor doesn't.
Oncor has no authority to make that decision at all.
Because it's all, because it's
That's
been
correct.
filed.
Because we're not the entity that the state has trusted with the siting of these facilities. Our job is to provide a reasonable number of geographically diverse routing options. That is our job. We hopefully have done that. We've provided a slate of options. The commission will now go through the process of looking at that according to the factors that the state has given to the Public Utility Commission of Texas, because that's who sets them out. Your elected officials have told the commission how they want these decisions made. and then they will apply those factors and render a decision as to where the project should be built in that August order generally. But yes, to your point, your audience is the Public Utility Commission of Texas. Go ahead, sir.
These, the filings of testimony or statement of positions that are due April the 8th, are they done on PUC's website, or do they have to be done manually?
They are filed on the PUC's website. Is that what you mean by that?
That's how do we
You
file it
submit
on
them.
their website?
Yes, sir.
Just like we did on the initial intervention deadline?
Yes, sir. His question was, how do I actually get my testimony at the Public Utility Commission of Texas? Do I mail it? Do I submit it through the interchange? It's the same process as if you file a motion to intervene or a comment in the docket, same process. You're gonna use the Public Utility Commission of Texas interchange process to submit it directly to them.
Sir, one more thing let me follow up just.
I have a question for you. Did you file an EIS on the route that you finally chose, or did you do with just an environmental assessment? Or are you required to file an EIS before you recommend a specific route?
So his question was, did Oncor do an EIS, which is an environmental impact statement, for those not familiar with the acronym, or did we do an EA, which is an environmental assessment? The rules of the Public Utility Commission of Texas require an EA, an environmental assessment, not an EIS, so that is what has been done
Well, that's
for this
a lot
project.
less stringent than an EIS.
Yes, there are.
Well, I mean, we've heard a lot about the environmental impact and you choosing your route, whether it be longer, how much per mile. But does your EA include in it, which is required in an EIS, economic impact of those as well as the communities that you're affecting? And did you do that and present that to the Utility Commission with the recommendation of the route you had?
Short answer is no. There is not an economic impact done for the transmission line. There is an ERCOT economic impact. It's not economic impact in the way you are thinking about it, but there is a portion of that process that looks at the economics of the transmission lines, but it's not what you're thinking of, which is an economic impact.
What these people are thinking about is the environmental impact on the ground. How's it affecting the community? And your environmental impact is in considering economics is how it's affecting the transmission and building of these lines. I think you should consider both.
I would agree with you. The EA is designed to look at the environmental impact of it, and then the electrical need is the second side of it. And both are before the Public Utility Commission of Texas in this analysis. They do not require an EIS. Why? I do not know the answer. That's their rule. They require environmental assessment. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, Jared, she had a follow-up.
Whichever.
No, go ahead.
Is there a minimum distance that?
Habitable structure could be from the line that's considered safe?
Yes, that distance is outside of the right-of-way. The right-of-way is up to 200 feet. That minimum distance would therefore be 100 feet, which is the distance from the center line to the outside of that right-of-way.
I just want to follow up on February 19th when it was filed. Did y'all have these kind of meetings prior to that with other communities that were affected?
No, this is the first of
Really?
this type of meeting we have had.
Really?
We had the public information meetings
And what-
originally when we presented the routing,
And how
but
how
then we
was
did
that
not
held?
do a question and answer period like this at
Oh.
any of those meetings. This is the only one we've had.
So those town halls weren't put on by y'all that were in other counties? Like
We-
Brown County?
We had 3 meetings for
Yes.
this project that were, I don't even remember the time frame right now, I apologize. But we had the 3.
But it was
they were-
prior to February 19th, though. I mean, before.
Yes.
It
No,
was in
absolutely.
June of last
That's
year.
right.
Yeah.
But no, we haven't had any other, the town hall meetings, we haven't had any that were this type of a format. This is the only one we've done. Go ahead, sir.
The answer to his question was what distance again?
Was the minimum distance a structure can be from the center line of the transmission line?
Is that a safety concern?
It is for us, but.
Okay. But is that a safety concern?
I view it more as an engineering concern than a safety concern, but that would be interpreted by different folks.
Well, because it's interesting that I was notified because it's within 500 feet of my house.
Correct. There's a rule of the Public Utility Commission of Texas that defines who has to receive notice of the project, and that requires notice if a structure is within 500 feet of the center line.
And the reason for that is not safety?
You ain't answering the question. How close can you be to?
So if it can't be by a structure, what about our animals, our cattle? And I got a question, did they did a survey on humans, did anybody do it on animals?
In fact, most of the studies that have been done on animals. But again, I'm not the doctor. I'm not the guy to refer to that. I would refer you to Dr. Gilman's testimony in the case. But yes, most of the studies, frankly, that he is relying on and that have been done on the study on the impacts of electromagnetic fields have been done on animals. And that's what he walks through in that testimony.
So they're ready to put it in writing?
Yeah, I'm writing it down, you bet.
I've done some digging and research of my own, the health impacts, which I'm impacted both. It's extremely close to my home and my children. And it also is where we work on a daily basis. And there are studies done back in 1979 at 500 showing that 600 meters more than doubled childhood leukemia. And so these power lines are significantly more powerful than that. And if I do my math right, I think 600 meters is close to 2,000 feet, not 200 feet. So that's a huge concern. And then I'm sure the answer would be is if people are impacted health-wise and our livestock impacted health-wise, is there gonna be any kind of accountability with your company, with the state of Texas Energy? I mean, that's a concern. Not only does it devalue our land, and it's unsightly to look at, I'm almost in tears. I'm sick to my stomach, as is everyone else. And so I know you kind of skated around that health impact earlier and just kind of put that off on that doctor. Who pays the doctor to do this research? And do we have to wait till the testimony, till the end of this, to find out what possible health impact is gonna be on us and my neighbors and our community and our children and our children's children that we were hoping to pass our land down to?
So, starting with the end. So, no, you do not have to wait to the end of this. His testimony is filed in several documents right now. And you're welcome to go get it. If you want to sit down afterwards, I can give you those docket numbers. I don't have them memorized. That testimony is out there. The reason I'm not answering those questions is because I'm not him. Just to be blunt about it. He's a medical expert who spent his career studying the effects of these things. And he's in a much better place to say that than I am. But I would refer you to his testimony. I'm happy to point you to those now, because there's no reason you need to wait to the end of this proceeding for that piece.
What's his name again?
Dr. Edward Gilman. And he used to be at NYU, and he has now just moved to ASU, Arizona State University, I think.
Can you answer the other half of her question? Who paid him?
Oh, we paid him to testify.
Of course.
We didn't pay him to
There are studies that the NIH has published who say that there is a negative impact on honeybees, and honeybees are necessary for crops.
Yeah.
And if they have a negative impact on honeybees, then how can you say that there's no negative impact on animals? So clearly this doctor doesn't really know, because that's the NIH.
Like I said, this is not, I'm not the one to speak to the health impacts. I apologize.
So will there be any other expert witnesses, because obviously he has a very vested interest in saying one thing, but that isn't necessarily.
Ma'am, I disagree with you. He has a vested interest
We made it to a few, that is correct.
She's looking for a job.
Go ahead, ma'am.
You mentioned earlier that there was a notice, a page that we could find from state representatives that were in support of this current change in law. Can you state that again so we get it right?
So the question earlier in the day was, who did we meet with? Which legislators have we met with? And there's a long list of them it's provided. I do not know the page and line in the application. It would be two things. It would be in the notice affidavits, and it would be in the environmental assessment as it's listing out agencies and elected officials that we have met with. All right, next question I have is, can you provide copies of the easements? I do not have that here tonight. Yes, that is something that we can provide to give you an idea of exactly what the land impacts would be from a real estate perspective. Go ahead, sir.
All these rangers have big properties, I mean, can't zigzag away from everybody's houses or pins or anything like that. Who do they need to get in touch with to get it moved to, say, your south fence line and not interact with so much of your property? And when do they need to do that?
It's a good question. All right, so his question is, large parcel of property, if they want to talk with you all about moving the line to a southern boundary or away from something on the property, interior to it. I would ask you to reach out to the Oncor project manager, whose cards they're here tonight. I can introduce you to those folks. And the earlier in the process we have those discussions, the more likely we are to be able to accomplish that. That's the short answer. After the project is approved, there will be a provision in that order that talks about route modifications that can be made post-approval. But that's a small bucket. They are limited in scope by that order. Those are much easier to accomplish in the process, working with the landowners, trying to delineate them so that the commission can approve them if they find it appropriate. Go ahead, ma'am.
So I know with the load in West Texas, that was kind of what started this, getting more power out that way. I'm curious, what kind of time frame would we be looking at to do this again? What if they need more power, or North Texas needs more power or something? Like, would you use same routes again? Would this come up 20 years from now? They didn't select this path now. Who might have to, we'll be revisiting this,
Good question.
soon.
So her question is, when will this be revisited, or when will there be a phase 2? I think is really the question you're trying to ask. So the study that was done by ERCOT was basically a 10-year plus study, a little less than 10 years. It was looking out through 2038 for the needs of the.
And that didn't include AI supposedly, which I'm just worried that there's more coming, so more power.
You would generally see that load estimates in the state of Texas are continuing to grow. That is interesting. ERCOT does a plan every year that is looking 6 years out. And so, I don't know how exactly to answer your question, because they could define something additional at any time.
I guess
but
just
this
wondering,
plan-
would they consider the same route again in the future? This is obviously going to one particular area in West Texas. Would they be like, oh yeah, we had this route, back in 2025, 26, y'all can go this way again?
Oh, you mean the routing that we're proposing to the
Yeah,
PCM?
would we be affected again in a future project possibly?
I have no way to know, nor answer that question. The routing that we have done for this project, honestly, it kind of dies with the project. If there is another project that comes along that is through the same geographic area, could it be looked at in the same areas identified? Absolutely. That's a possibility. So I don't know if I'm answering your question or not. It's kind of,
It's not like,
it's
hey,
far
we
enough
had
out
this
there, I
plan
really don't
from,
know.
several years ago, here you go.
That's right. No, the maps aren't regurgitated like that.
So what you're saying is the PUC is not designated corridors for this line or additional lines in the future?
Correct. The PUC does not operate on a corridor system like some other states do. Did you have a question, sir? Sorry, I keep seeing hands outside of my eye.
We've already addressed this one a little bit, but what authority do you have to amend the applications to remove the lines traversing Shackelford County? At this point, we do not have that authority. That authority exists at the Public Utility Commission of Texas to make the routing decision. At this point, did the doctor study humans or animals? There are studies that have been done on both, and he walks through those in detail in that testimony. This question is dealing with specific medical impacts, and then the real question at the end is, are you going to buy us a house if we have to move off of fourth generation? Again, those are issues that are dealt with in phase 2 of this process when it comes to acquiring property. I apologize, I just have no idea the answer to that, without knowing the specifics of that and how it is impacted. We've addressed this once or twice, but I'll hit it again since folks in the room are changing. Why aren't these lines/links proposed on existing power corridors? They are and they are not. There are certain areas of the study area where we are parallel and adjacent to existing transmission line corridors. There are many areas where we are not. Both will be presented there for the Public Utility Commission of Texas' consideration. Question, how will these lines impact existing oil and gas pipelines? Pipelines are a unique factor. We do not parallel pipelines as something we look out and try and do, but we are in Texas and there are more pipelines than almost any other structure. And so there are many times where we will be parallel or crossing pipelines. There's a specific ordering paragraph in the commission's orders in every case that requires coordination between the electric utility and the pipeline post-approval for any studies on impacts to pipeline infrastructure that need to be done by the pipeline companies. We've addressed this one a little bit as well. How many lines will be approved by the PUC? Is it just one that will go from A to B? The short answer to that question is yes. If you missed that discussion earlier, there will be one line that is approved that goes stem to stern across the project from Dinosaur to Longshore. There will be only one, and then all the other routes will be eliminated. Bottom question. Can the PUC, can the Public Utility Commission of Texas say no to the project completely, and what would happen in that situation? Answer to that question is yes. The Public Utility Commission of Texas has the ability to approve, amend, or deny an application. These projects are a little bit unique in that they have already been approved by the Public Utility Commission of Texas through 2 prior orders. But yes, does the Public Utility Commission of Texas have that authority? Could they make that decision? The answer is yes. They could. Go ahead.
So if the original, approval by the PUC was southern route through Runs County, and now y'all have moved to this, can you kind of give, maybe you have, I'm late to the party, but can you tell us why the route been moved to the north?
Yes, so
Specifically.
his question is, if the Public Utility Commission of Texas had approved this to the south, why the move to the north? Answer to that question, let me unpack it a little bit. First of all, the commission hasn't approved any route in any location today. They've approved the order that included this project to come forward. We are essentially, Oncor Electric is essentially under order to file this case. We have to bring it forward.
So my understanding though is that y'all's preferred route was the southern route, correct?
The SME route is actually through the middle of the study area. It's not really a southern or northern. That's how I would describe it. Others may call it southern.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, that was y'all preferred route. So something has changed to now recommend the northern route.
No recommendation on the northern. Those are just options. And maybe that's why I'm failing to answer your question.
My question is why that has occurred in the last 60 or 90 days, why the northern route has now been proposed by y'all. What is y'all's purpose in doing that?
We were asked to provide more options.
Who asked that question?
Oh, several folks. It was,
Who?
I don't have names for you, sir. It was folks at the public meetings that were held the first time. There were several elected officials that gave us that feedback.
We would appreciate that list of people who
Understood.
have recommended the northern route and why the northern route has been recommended.
All of those comments from those prior meetings, we can provide in the docket. If you're an intervener in the case, just ask for them. You're welcome to have them all. And there's also the list of all the officials that we met with throughout the process.
Was any federal official or state official, intervening in those regards after the southern route was produced?
After the public meetings, I
Yes.
think is what you mean. Yes, many of them. Many of those comments came in.
We would like a list of all those people.
After the public meetings.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir. You've been real patient.
You mentioned a preferred route. Could you say that route number again, five something?
Yeah, it's called a best meets route, is what it is called, and it is route 552.
552?
552.
Thank you.
And if you look, there's a link table in here that provides that number and all the component pieces of it.
So I got a question. So political power says, what you're saying is the southern routes, because of all the political pressure put on the PUC by politicians, y'all, the Oncor and the PUC decided to add two more routes to the north of Apple. And that was more about politics than it was anything else. Which one's the best route? It didn't have anything to do with that. It's all about politics. Is that a safe assumption?
No, I would say it's all about options. Is that we were given guidance that we needed to provide more options. And as Mike went through a little while ago, we provided more options to the south. We provided more options that flow through the middle, some of which are part of the best meets route, and we provided more options to the north. So we provided additional options that were not present in that fall timeframe when those other meetings occurred across the study area. Yes, there are some to the north, but there are also some to the south and some through the middle.
And when did you add those two options to the north?
I don't have a date for you, sir. We started working on those, I don't know, sometime at the end of last year as we were trying to prepare the application, but I don't know the time exactly.
So what public meetings, you said a while ago that you haven't had any meetings like this. What public meetings were held with those state representatives or all for that you just mentioned?
So public meetings were the three we held.
Those were
after that time frame. Those are the only public meetings that we held.
Okay, but that's when state legislatures are
Following those meetings. Following those
Oh,
meetings.
okay.
Sorry, I'm skipping over some of these because we've gone through so many of these. This is again, who makes the final decision? How will it be made? It will be made by the Public Utility Commission of Texas, and it will be made based on the routing factors which are contained in two places, PURA 37056 and PUC Substantive Rule 25. That's where you would find.
Is that based off offtake and intake or, without me looking those up, just give me the general idea?
So they're based on a number of factors. If you walk through those factors that the PUC really considers, it is how much does the line cost? How much is this route versus that route? How many habitable structures are impacted?
So in that regard, then, the AI Center, Vantage, and Stargate are gonna be a factor in this decision making by the PUC. Because they're offloading customers.
Oh, is that what you mean by intake and offload?
Yes.
So, I don't know, is the short answer to that question. This is a 765 kV line that is designed to transmit high voltage power over long distances. It is not really designed to serve load. It is designed to get power from point A to point B. That's our, being Oncor's opinion of what these lines are used for.
What's PUC's opinion?
I don't know, we're gonna find out. I don't know the answer to that. But customers taking or not taking from it is traditionally not one of the main, it is not one of the routing factors articulated in those two rules. Let me answer it that way.
I understand that, but now under the new rules, under Senate Bill 8, generation, behind meter generation is as important on these factors, and your factor too, as these AI people are having to put behind meter generation, and they have to have a way to get off as well as go on. And I think, maybe not Oncor, although I would think Oncor would be interested in that, generation capability. The PUC certainly is.
Okay, sorry, I just got a new sets of questions, so I'm gonna start with these since chances are we haven't gotten to these yet. What percentage of the electricity carried on this line is expected to serve local communities versus industrial and data center? I'm gonna give you an unsatisfactory answer here. There's no way to make that determination. That power on that line steps down into the lower voltage lines and is used ubiquitously between the various classes of customers. So there's really no finite answer for that piece. Who approved the expenditure of $38 billion? I assume that's referring to the cost of the projects as a whole. The answer to that question is the Public Utility Commission of Texas. That is who has ordered the Permian Basin plan to go forward. Go ahead, sir.
Would you mind explaining to these, nice people the process on that $38 billion approval? That it was just strictly the Public Utilities Commission that somehow had the authority to do that? I've done some research and I cannot find that there are any guidelines, no checks and balances, that they can just come up with a project and roll the money over to the ratepayers. This amount could have been 10 times as much, and I see absolutely no checks and balances or limits on what it could have been. Am I correct?
Let me try and explain, and you come back to me again if I don't answer your question, okay? All right, so when we're talking about this plan, the Permian Basin Reliability Plan, the Public Utility Commission of Texas, yes, is the entity that selected the plan and moved it forward. They did that pursuant to a direct mandate from the Texas legislature. So they were mandated to study and approve a plan for the Permian Basin. So, short answer, I think that's where that authority came from. It was, they were told to go and do this. That started with HB 5066 that was passed by the Texas legislature.
Yeah.
The rest of it.
5066.
The rest.
Says they were to develop a plan. It doesn't say they were to institute the plan. When I read it, I thought that was an indication they were to develop a plan. Usually the people who authorize the plan are the ones you go back to for approval. It appears that our legislature did not do any kind of approval, so we have $38 billion bill coming at all of the ratepayers of Texas that nobody except a small group of PUC commissioners have been involved in and made a decision.
Right, wrong, or indifferent, Chapter 37 of Pura vests the Public Utility Commission of Texas in this state with that authority to be the judge and jury, so to speak, for transmission expenditures
With no limitation.
in the state of Texas. They have limitations, but they are the governing body of that. But that, well, chapters 35, 36, and 37 all go into play there. But the Public Utility Regulatory Act is the checks and balances on that agency. That is their enabling authority. And I apologize, that doesn't fully.
But there's not a dollar limitation.
There's not a dollar limitation. We would agree on that.
Okay, thank you.
Is Oncor Electric Project 765 kV kilovolt transmission line associated in any way support/financing/facilitating in the operations of Project Matador? Project Matador, is that whoever asked this question, is Project Matador the Fermi project? Is that?
No, it's not.
That's the Amarillo project, right?
Yes, it's not, I mean, I can't believe the people that are here doesn't know what the Matador project is or the Fermi project, so.
So, my understanding is Project Matador is an Excel Energy service territory. Now, I could be wrong on that. So, Excel Energy is on a separate electric grid. It is not on the Texas electric grid. So the answer to that question is an emphatic no. That project can in no way benefit from this. Project Matador, assuming that I've got it correct, cannot participate nor frankly even touch the power that will transmit across this, because they are on separate electric grids. In this area, those two electric grids get very close to each other, but they are separate and distinct. What position does ex-Governor Rick Perry play in the broad plan with Oncor? Answer that question is no. He has no involvement whatsoever and no say in that whatsoever.
While you're looking at that, are y'all limited on 200-foot easement? Are y'all limited to that 200-foot easement period, other than what you were talking? If it's a straight line, if you get 201 foot out of that easement, I got a right to go after you, right?
Yes, sir. We would only have real estate rights within that 200-foot easement, with the exception of other areas where we have acquired some type of construction easement. Primarily, that's around angles. And the only third one that I probably should have mentioned earlier is sometimes we will need to acquire an access road to get to a specific area. But those are individual acquisitions of rights that has to happen.
So if there's no good access other than your 200, you're limited to that 200-foot easement. There's no access by county roads or anything except for highways that are 10 miles apart.
Then those crews would enter from that public roadway onto that 200 feet and traverse that 200, within that 200 feet. Yes. The real estate rights that the company will eventually acquire on whatever property that is for whichever route is approved will be defined to those areas. But this was a question we've already kind of covered, was on honeybee colonies and the study that was done. Honeybees are a little bit of a different because of their hive mentality, but again, I'm not going to go into details on that one, not being the doctor on that. This again is a medical question that I'm going to respectfully pass on and refer back to that testimony.
Jared, that docket earlier is 59029.
Where the testimony's filed?
Yeah. Thanks. So, someone was asking earlier about the Gelman testimony. You can find it in docket 59029. That was the first docket we filed on 765. So if you're looking for it and you search for it, just search for Encore as a filer, find the testimony, you can find Gelman's testimony.
That's the doctor's testimony?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. This is a good question. It says, are you here because it is likely that this area will be selected for the route to go through here? No, I have absolutely no idea where the route would be selected, and any smart man would not put betting probabilities on that. So no to that question.
Is, kind of to follow up on that, is it just a courtesy since we kind of got brought into this late that this meeting is happening? Is that the reason for the meeting? We haven't got a real clear answer on that. Because you said it's an unusual, extremely rare meeting like this, so what makes us special for that?
We were asked by, basically from public comments we received from several folks to come and provide a meeting because of, frankly, a lot of the concerns heard tonight, and so we did. I mean, it's really that simple. There's nothing more to it. And yes, it is the only one we've done like this.
And we appreciate that.
Yes,
I want to say that.
Yes.
I know, you, like he mentioned before, you have the hardest job in the state right now, so I hope you have a nice cold beer tonight after this.
Something. No, I'm driving home. We're not doing that. All right. Why did the environmental assessment not include historical cultural features? Well, the short answer is I believe it did. And as you walk through that, and granted, sometimes on large properties, especially large family properties, we don't know about some of them. That's just a true statement. Family cemeteries, I would tell you, is one of those that commonly, we may not know about them if they're interior to a large property and they're not reported. But in the environmental assessment, there's a specific cultural resources section, and that section should walk through cultural resources. If we have missed one, I would invite you to please make us aware of that, and that's something you should point out in testimony if you violate the Public Utility Commission of Texas. Go ahead, sir.
So you're saying the northern route that's coming through our county has already had the environmental assessment made?
Yes. His question was, has the environmental assessment already been made of the route to the north? And yes, every route that we have filed with the Public Utility Commission of Texas, we have done an environmental assessment looking at the specific characteristics of that route. Those are the northern routes, central routes, southern routes, every route that we have proposed. Question, I think Mike addressed this a little while ago, but what will Oncor do with the feedback from this meeting? So our intention is to take all of the feedback forms that you all have filled out tonight and provide them all in a filing at the Public Utility Commission of Texas so that it goes into that process. Will there be any substations, sorry, I'm so hard to remember that. Will there be any substations along the proposed final route? As the project is contemplated right now, the answer is no. The project is designed to go from Dinosaur to Longshore direct with no intermediate stops, kind of like an express train. Could that change in the future? Absolutely. We are a fully regulated entity by the Public Utility Commission of Texas. If ERCOT finds a need for a station somewhere in the middle, we'll be told to build a station somewhere in the middle. But the project, as contemplated and filed right now, does not have a station in the middle. We've addressed this one a couple times, but how far does the line have to be from an occupied residence? Occupied residence has to be outside the footprint of the easement, which is 200 feet. That would be 100 feet from the central line of the transmission line, just to be clear. Will the lines on my property affect a planned housing development, and how is planned future use addressed? That's a hard question because it changes case to case. Generally, what you will see in these cases is there is commonly, I would say, a little bit of a push and pull between impacts on existing development and impacts on future developments. And that's why the state makes the decisions. I have no doubt in this case, as well as the next case that we will have after this, there will be several spots where certain people are objecting to a leak based on how they use the property today, and other people will be objecting to a different leak based on how they want to develop the property tomorrow, whether that's for a business or a housing subdivision like this question. Those issues are addressed by the Public Utility Commission of Texas on a case-by-case basis. They receive that evidence, they consider that evidence. You will commonly, in their decision-making process, hear them debate back and forth. There are 5 of them, so it's not one person that makes this decision. There are 5 commissioners. Frankly, they disagree sometimes, and so they will debate and arrive at a decision amongst themselves. So, short answer to the question is, I do not know how that will be considered because it's not up to us. Our job is to provide the options. Their job is to make the decisions. Go ahead.
Since the southern route was y'all's, Encore's recommended, as a testimony to the PUC, y'all's recommended route, and then the PUC or y'all decided to recommend or bring these other 3 routes up. Our goal should be either to pressure you or pressure the PUC. So what's your recommendation? Should we pressure you or pressure the PUC?
You're welcome to pressure us all you want, but our job on the routing is done. The options are filed with the Public Utility Commission of Texas. We make no further decisions on those routes.
They what PEC says.
They make that. Say again?
Y'all don't have a say, y'all just do what y'all told.
Correct. We are a regulated utility, which means we build what we are told. That's
You're gonna report it to the PUC, we don't like it.
I'm sorry?
You're gonna report it to the PUC, we don't like it. That we don't want it.
We are going to take the questionnaires that you have filled out tonight, and we will file those at the commission.
And maybe all those questions that we've asked.
This question here, we addressed earlier, but the fact that it came up again, I'm going to expound on this a little bit. Can you elaborate on the April 8th intervener's deadline for testimony? So if you weren't in the room earlier, there is a deadline, I apologize, on your face. There is a deadline on April 8th for the filing of direct testimony in the case. That is an imperative deadline if you want to stay involved in the case. That is the date on which you have to provide testimony or is the evidence you want the commission to consider. That is in a written form and it has to be filed on the Public Utility Commission of Texas's website. Again, very important deadline that you do not want to miss. If that was your question and you want me to elaborate more on it, I'm happy to do so. Go ahead, sir.
On the intervener's website, when we signed up for that, there was a place to upload documents. We did upload documents. Did that count as the testimony?
Not as your testimony, no. Testimony is a separate filing on that April 8th deadline. I don't know what you uploaded, so I apologize about that. But typically you are required to make a filing as an intervener to become a party in the case and then a separate filing for direct testimony. We addressed this question a little earlier, but does the project require an EIS or are we only proceeding with an EA? We are proceeding with an EA, which is an environmental assessment, because that is what the rules of the Public Utility Commission of Texas require. All right, so this question is, since Oncor earns a return on its capital invested, what financial incentives are in place to minimize costs and environmental footprint for the project? What are the back-end cost controls that the commission has? Frankly, there's a lot of them. The commission monitors costs through a monthly
construction progress report.
Thank you. Monthly construction progress report where the utility is reporting on a monthly basis, percentage complete, dollars spent. Thomas's group handles a lot of that. And that happens on every transmission project going forward. In addition to that, they are establishing a Permian Basin monitor, which is an additional level of scrutiny that is being put in place just for these projects, frankly, because of this concern. And then the third and probably most rigorous of all of those is just because the utility spends the money on a transmission line project doesn't mean they actually get to recover the dollars. Every dollar that is spent by a regulated utility has to be reviewed through a rate case and then is either allowed or disallowed by the Public Utility Commission of Texas specifically. So I think the cost estimates for this case are like $1.6, $1.8 billion. When those dollars are spent, Oncor has to submit, think about it like trying to get reimbursement of a receipt at your job. We have to submit all the information on how we expended those costs, what those costs were. Public Utility Commission of Texas can ask us a million questions on it and get as granular into that as they want, and then their staff will make a recommendation on were those dollars spent prudently and reasonably, or were they not, and is disallowance of those dollars appropriate? So those are kind of the three different levels, as I would summarize them, of how they look at cost and try and control those. Any step in there I missed, guys? It's okay, it's good. And y'all, that may be the last of our submitted questions. We've been through all of the rest of these. Go ahead, sir.
This may be covered earlier, but the additional cost are coming from the southern route, which is your recommended route, to the northern route, or T1 or T2. What is the differential in price? That ratepayers, obviously, for PUC approves, will pay.
I don't know those numbers off the top of my head. They are in our application. They are in the direct testimony of Ms. Corinne Cooley. So if you just Google Cooley, her testimony will pop up and all those costs are in there. But it's I know of a swing of at least $200 to $300 million between some of those routes. And my guess is the number is actually a larger swing than that, but it's at least that.
I want to make a comment and say thank you all for coming to Albany and making this presentation as best as you have. You've answered the questions as best as you have. There's still people sitting in this auditorium right now that are 5th and 6th generation landowners. Their ancestors got here when the Indians were here. They fought the Indians. And I want Oncor to know, you're into the 5th or 6th generations, and we're gonna put up a good fight. I hope you all know that.
Yes, sir.
And I hope the PUC realizes that. Most everybody in here does not have wind turbines. They don't have solar farms. We don't want any of that. And it is a full encroachment to come through open prairie for no real good reason. And we've all sat here for almost 3 hours. And I applaud you for coming here again. But I hadn't heard a good reason yet to come up here on the northern route or the second route. The easiest way to get from A to B is a straight line. Thank you. And I appreciate your time.
Good job.
Any other questions? I don't want to kick folks out, so anything we haven't covered, please let us know, because we'll stay here as long as y'all want.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
By the way, we don't disagree with you.
I know. I do. Thank you.